we're gonna start with the lecture on mapping tools, basically. I'll occasionally probably have to switch between streaming OS and mapping tools. We'll see how it's gonna go. And remember, you're probably gonna get most out of this if you occasionally ask questions. Let me stop the O stream and just switch to mapping tools. Then also switch to mapping tools in the recording. Okay. So we're mostly going to go down basically every tool from the top to the bottom, and I'm gonna sort of talk about which ones are more useful, which ones are less useful, etc. We're gonna start right away with like, I guess, the preferences. So later this will probably have to be censored or whatever, because you can see my name, but it doesn't matter right now. So whenever you download mapping tools, you always have to obviously set these folders, like the OS folder, song folder, your config and CFG file, which are used for basically the game is like mapping tools is like getting access to your game over the CFG file, and I believe it's like reading your memory. So if you have bad RAM, I believe the program might occasionally run really weirdly, or like if it's making backups, it can get lead to like huge frame drops. I've experienced that in the past when I had a worse PC, but now it seems to be fine with a lot more RAM. Yeah, if anyone is experiencing issues with that, that could be it. Also, a weird thing about the CFG stuff is that I'm not 100% sure, but I think you can't actually use mapping tools if you're offline, or you can't use certain tools because somehow it or you would have to change the CFG maybe because the CFG is like linked to your online account and stuff. It's a little bit weird. I've never tried around if there's some way to use it offline, but whatever. So below the folders and stuff, there's how many backups. There can be the backup folder set to 1000 by default. I don't really care changing it. If you're experiencing issues, you could maybe disable the automatic backups or make the periods, the interval, a little bit longer, etc. You can't see that, I think, in the recording. I don't know, can you see the little like tooltips when I hover over stuff in the Discord stream? They're not too important, but there are like basically tooltips whenever you hover over almost anything. Especially if you go into the tools, there's usually these there's like a green question mark, and if you click on it, it basically says what the tool does. Like Hitson Studio is the tool that lets you import data from multiple outside sources and convert them to also standard Hitsons, blah blah blah, etc. So those can be really useful. We can't. Oh wait. Yeah, I assume you probably can't. I don't know. We can? Maybe you can read the green question mark stuff, but when you hover over individual options, there's also this like a pop-up. Like when I hover over the current beatmap default folder, it says enable this to get the current beatmap folder as the default folder whenever you open a file explorer in a tool which doesn't use current beatmap, blah blah blah. So there are also obviously those tooltips. Whenever you don't know what anything does, you can basically just read those. But I'll still try to kind of explain the ones I know, how they might be useful for certain things. Editor reader should basically always be enabled. I think override also save with better save is not enabled by default. You should probably enable that. Better save is basically like a function in mapping tools where instead of the default client, basically when you save something, it rounds certain positions of say objects by just cutting off a certain value by, what is it? Oh yeah, so the default client basically it truncates values. So if you have something like you place an object that's at 10.34 or something, let's say 10.6 OS pixels. You move something by 10.6 OS pixels or something. I don't know. What does the default OSU client will do? It will take that number and just make it 10. What mapping tools will do is it will round it to 11. That's kind of it. So that will mostly affect kind of little things like when you reload the map, where the objects are moving, etc. Probably also some other stuff like green lines, what the exact values those have, like the SVs or whatever. Probably affects them as well. I don't know exactly all the values it could affect, but whatever. A very helpful little thing at the bottom here then is the quick run function. Basically, when you press a certain key or combination of key that you set as the quick run key, it can run certain tools just automatically. I have it set to when I have no object selected, it will use hits on preview helper. If I have a single object selected, it will automatically run slider completionator, and if I have multiple objects selected, slider merger. So it depends on what kind of objects you have selected, and then you can obviously pick different ones. Like instead of slider merger, when I have multiple objects selected, I could have, I don't know, pattern gallery. So like, let's say I have 5 objects or something, I select the 5 objects. If I then run the tool, it will automatically replace those 5 objects with whatever I've selected in pattern gallery or something. Obviously there's also a quick undo hotkey. I almost never use that one, but it's probably kind of useful. And better save hotkey, only really useful if you want to, for some reason, use the normal and the better save function at the same time. Like, but I don't know why you would do that. Just select override better save and don't set this. It doesn't matter. Any questions on the preferences so far on the quick run tool or whatever, or better save, or the backups? Any questions on that? Okay. Well, I guess we can just move to the first tool basically, which is relatively simple. It is auto fail detector. So what this basically does is if you go to a map that has certain objects in it that will cause you to automatically fail when you end the map, this can sometimes fix it, or probably in most cases it can fix it. So you could basically just run the tool, and it most of the time will sort of just handle it. It will just make it so the map doesn't auto-fail anymore. There are some more specific options if you can't get it to fix the auto-fail stuff right away, or like you can see additional information about what causes the issue maybe. I'm not really an expert on this tool, and I don't really use it at all. I don't really care. Yeah, it's for really extreme maps like Aspire stuff, etc. or 2D maps. I mean, if you ever make a map like that, you can probably figure out, roughly speaking, how the tool works. Yeah, I believe that John might know a little bit more about that. Like, there's certain AR or OD stuff and some stuff about spinners that fixes this stuff, but I have honestly no idea. So let's just go to the next tool, which is Combo Color Studio, and that one is sort of useful. Can maybe, oh, open up empty project. Can I? Actually, new project. Yes. So at the top there's the project drop down, right? And then you can obviously, for most of the tools, you can individually save and load certain states. So in this case, I can save and load certain combo color arrangements I have for other maps. For example, right of the 6WC tiebreaker collab has something like this. I can probably explain that, what all this means a little bit, but for now, can just go to a new one. Then I can kind of explain how all the options work. So at the bottom there are these, on the bottom left and bottom right there are these plus and minus buttons. On the left side, there are you can then with that add colors. So I can say add this red, and then I can add like a blue or something. Something else you can do is if you have a map open, like I have one open in the background right now. When I go to File and then click the Open Current Bitmap button, you always have to kind of press that button under File to change the selected bitmap at the top. If you're not changing it, then when you run a tool, it can accidentally apply what you're doing to something that you don't, to a map that you don't want it to be applied to. So you should always be sure and press that button. But anyway, now that I have that map selected, I can click the Import Colors button, and it will then again bring up this window where it will ask me from which map I want to import colors. This is just a random map. You can most of the time you can just press the what's like a trash can with an arrow. That's basically fetching whatever you have opened in your game, or you can type in the folder name or something. Press accept, and now it instantly added the colors from the map that I have open. Again, this is just like a random map. It's the one that I had open earlier. Now I can then add colors to that one, obviously, or I can just remove some and only have like one or two. By open up a different random map and import colors, it will just overwrite the ones that I had earlier. So you can't like add multiple groups or whatever, or you have to like work around a little bit. When importing colors, you can, if you select the folder option, select multiple diffs together. So that could be kind of useful. Or you could maybe even make .osu files with basically ready-made color palettes or something, and then just save them. You could do all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah, it's still the exact combo colors from that map, basically. And then the import color hex button kind of does a similar thing, but with the color hex scheme that's in the map. So if I open up the tiebreaker collab, the 6WC tiebreaker collab, which is color hexed. Okay, it did it. I should be able to, first of all, import the colors, but then also import the color hex, I believe. So if I press accept now, it just imported all the color hex. And I think that works with any kind of map that has sort of customly applied colors. It's not just exclusively maps that use mapping tools to get color hexing. At least I believe so. I haven't actually tested it. But yeah, so that's how you could just basically copy the color hexing from one map to another completely. But if we wanted to make a new project, like I said earlier, if I now import the colors from that map, let's just do that. Do a nice colors, why not? We can now at the right side press these plus and minus buttons. If we press plus, we'll get, what is this called? I forgot the name. A color point. So this is like basically if I now go to a random map and get a timestamp. Actually, I'll open up the... No, look, let me just... If I get a timestamp, I can basically put it into this offset position. So I can just press Ctrl V if I have a timestamp, and it's all automatically put in. And then I can define a color sequence here. So what this will do is, from this offset point onwards, it will repeat these two colors constantly, forever. Everything before it will not have that color sequence, so everything before 1 minute 3 will just be cycling through all the colors that you have in your map. So it will go from the purple to the red or whatever, all the way through, until I define a new point. Oh, rip. So now I could go later into the map, press Ctrl C, then press Ctrl V in here. So 30 seconds later or something, I can define a different color sequence. And then after that point, this color sequence will repeat constantly. Can maybe sort of show a certain color sequence. Let me find just like a random ass map that's not even mine. Don't care. Sure. This one. So let me go into that one. Let's just make the first timing point just 0. And then like this minute, we'll change it to those colors. Then, I don't know. Here it will go to those colors. So, I've just selected that random map with the file open current beatmap dropdown. I press the button and it will apply it. So I'll quickly change the stream. And then change the recording as well. Okay. So this map hasn't been reloaded yet. So these were the colors that it basically already had. If you've opened up the stream already. So those were just the colors that the map previously had. Now, if I leave the map or if I press Ctrl L and then yes, it will apply my color hex. So now from the start of the map, basically, it had this color scheme. And then at this point here in time, it changed to a different one. Nice sounds. So you can kind of already see what I guess this is sort of for. Like you can have one section that has a certain color scheme. And then in a later section of the song, when the song changes, you can have a different color scheme. Or something like that. And then later section can have yet another color scheme. What exact colors you should be using for whatever sections is kind of like up to you to a certain degree. I guess I would recommend sort of looking up. We did kind of talk about that in our lecture on combo coloring or new combos, whatever it was called, where basically there are certain like things you can do, like arranging the combo colors in terms of heat or something, like how warm or cold the colors are. You can have like the colors that are on screen right now, they are like strongly contrasting or something, while the ones in the beginning, they are like more analogous to each other. They are like more similar. Can do all kinds of stuff like that. For example, the thing that we had in Rite of Ascendancy was kind of like a mix between the two things I mentioned, where they are like rainbow combo colors, and so in the comma sections they are like these colors, and then they get more uh, blue, greenish, or whatever, up until orange and red into the more intense sections. And basically every different section of the song has a different color scheme. So this first one is these two colors, then progresses to these two colors, then to these colors, then to these. See, this color scheme and then the following one, they're very different, so there's a lot of contrast that makes nicely represents that there's like a lot of contrast in the song as well, or whatever, something like that. Yeah, any questions about Combo Color Studio? Can quickly change the stream again. So no questions at all. There is like this burst mode that you can select. I have never really used it. I honestly don't really see the point of it. It's kind of a weird mode. Because it's supposed to like change color just for one combo cycle, I think. But sometimes it doesn't work well. Yeah, whatever. Trying to forget about this and map new combos in the map. Yeah, usually you would use this tool like after you've sort of completed your map. Like, well, you can kind of use it right at the beginning, sort of set a color scheme or whatever. But really, this is kind of like intended for if you have your map sort of like all finished, all the rhythm and arrangements are put down, that you like make it a little bit fancier, if that makes sense. Like you can add some nice ideas. It's like kind of like adding a storyboard or custom hit sounds. They can be added in the middle, but you can also add them at the end of your process when you're done with your map. Yeah. I mean, without this tool, color hexing is basically really just a pain. You have to every single color in the editor individually select that button and then change the color. It's just stupid. Yeah, it is kind of useful. I think even yeah, it's just a useful tool. I still don't really know the point of burst mode. I just don't use it. Something that is sometimes better to do with this tool is if you put the offset a little bit earlier than where the new combos start in your map. Because if it's like 1 millisecond, if the offset point is 1 millisecond after a new combo, it obviously will not apply to it. But if it's 1 millisecond before, it will apply to it. So if you ever find any kind of issues where like it is not actually changing the color sequence where you exactly want it, maybe you have to just like reduce the offset by a little bit, then it's fine. Yeah. Obviously you can input as many colors as you want into here. You can even put the same color in 3 times. Don't really know if that does anything. Let me see. It seems to not do anything. Actually, it kind of does do something, but it like does it in a really janky way. I can quickly show that. So I've selected that one blue like 3 times, and it basically did like this thing to apply that. So pretty sure if I press F4 and go to the colors. Oh, this is weird. It's somehow able to apply the same color twice. That's actually kind of cool. Well, I wouldn't recommend doing that because I think that might even be unrankable, but I'm not sure. Interesting. Well, anyway. Whoa, I changed the resolution to be really shitty. That's really cool. Okay. You can only tell there's new combos from the numbers. Yeah. Now, if you wanted to make your entire map one single combo color and like just make it because you want to, not because you want to rank it or something, I guess you could do that. That would be useful for that purpose. I don't actually know if there is anything in the ranking criteria prohibiting this, but I assume I assume you can't really rank a map like that, or it would honestly be kind of bad if you tried. We're gonna skip over geometry dashboard because it's probably the most complex tool in the in mapping tools. But yeah, even if there isn't, it's gonna generate controversy. Yeah, probably. Yeah, let's just go on to hits on copier. So again, as you can see, oh, anyway, so this tool is relatively simple. It's just you can copy your hit sounding from one map to another. Obviously, this is really helpful if you say are a hit sounder like me and you make hit sounding diffs for other people, like this one. And then, so you just have to select where to hit sound from and where to hit sound to. With the hit sound from, you can usually just press the fetch button. With where to copy to, it's actually a little bit more useful to maybe press the fetch button and then press the folder thing button and then select multiple difficulties. So you can copy from the hit sound diff to 5 difficulties at once. This has to be the same for hit sounds. What do you mean with this has to be the same for hit sounds? Like if the in what way? Like you mean with the button, the fetch button? Kinda. So with the earlier tool, you could like copy your color hexing and combo colors from one map to another. Although it's a little bit more, the copying isn't the main purpose of geometry of Combo Color Studio. Well, with this tool, it is literally the only purpose. Yeah, makes sense that you would have probably used that one. Usually, there's like under copying modes, there are these two different ones. Override everything is basically if that's going to be the one that you're going to use most of the time, where if you just want to copy hit sounds, entire hit sounds from one map to another, the override only defined is going to be useful if either the map you're copying to has some hit sounds, some additional hit sounds that you want to preserve, or if the hit sound diff you're copying from is like has only hit sounded a particular section of the song, but not the entire thing. So, for example, you could imagine a scenario where we have that tiebreaker song from earlier with like all the different sections mapped by different people. And let's say there are 5 hit sound diffs, and each hit sound diff is hit sounding a different part of the song because it's mapped by different people. If you then wanted to apply all those hit sound diffs to the one like tiebreaker difficulty with all sections mapped, you would probably have to use the override only defined function. Otherwise, you're gonna get kind of this issue where if you copy from the one section to the entire map, it's going to only have hit sounds in that one section, and everywhere else it's going to say, oh, there is no hit sound defined here, so I'll just delete the hit sounds everywhere else. And then it's just going to be soft hit normals in the entire map, except for that one section. So usually you want to have it on override everything, but there are some cases where override only defined is better. In turn, if you have override only defined always on, it doesn't really do. There isn't a big issue if you always have it on. The only thing I could imagine would be if the map you want to hit sound to has some random hit sounds in it for no reason, and you don't actually want those, then you have to do. Then override only defined would be wrong. Temporal leniency is like a thing where if both if the hit sound diff or basically the thing that you're copying from and the thing you're copying to have like unsnapped objects or very, very slight timing differences, this number will like take those differences into account. So if it's set to 5, I believe that's 5 milliseconds. So if an object is unsnapped by 5 milliseconds, it will still copy over the hit sound correctly. Usually you don't have to change this number at all. 5 is perfectly fine. But if you were mapping something that had like an insanely fast 116 bus slider or something, or if, I don't know, you were copying from something where the entire map is like, if there are big timing differences or something, then you would have to change the number, but you don't really have to worry about it. Now, all the checkboxes at the bottom, they're kind of important. So obviously, if you have the copy hit sounds button checked or unchecked, depends on where you want to copy hit sounds. Now, sometimes you might want to uncheck it if you only want to have some of the other stuff applied. So let's say you just want to mute all the slider ends in your map for some reason. Then you would basically deselect everything and just select this. But most of the time, you're going to have these options selected. Same with copy slider body hit sounds. Maybe you want to disable that and have no slider body hit sounds copied over. This is only really like if you turn it on and there are no slider body hit sounds in your hit sound diff, then it will just do nothing. So it's relatively inoffensive to just keep it on for forever and never change it, unless you had like a weird case where a hit sounder put a ton of sliders into the map with whistles and you just didn't want them for some reason. When would I want to mute slider ends? Like if they are mapped to nothing? So this kind of depends a little bit on your mapping style. If you're one of those mappers where basically your entire rhythm is 1/4 filler, so like some tech mappers have that thing where basically all the sliders are either 1/4 sliders or extended, and the most, if not none of the slider ends are mapped to anything. With that kind of style, it fits really well to mute all the slider ends, because there are most of the time going to be no sounds on them. I think, but for people who are like mapping slider ends to sounds, you probably don't want to have that option enabled. If you might sometimes, like if you have a 3/4 beat slider that's where the slider end is mapped to nothing, you can then just mute it on your own. Like you can set a shortcut for placing a green line and then just change the volume to 5%. Oh, and what this option will do is it will just place a bunch of green lines at 5% volume. I think it depends on the setting selected. There's like an index you can select. There are beat snap divisors you can select, so that it will say only apply it to 1/4 or 1/3 or something. You can select the minimum duration of how long a slider should be. Use this to not accidentally mute kick sliders. You can probably also set this like to I don't know what the minimum duration would be. 0. I don't know what the 0.5 number exactly means, but I assume you could somehow set this number to basically only mute slider ends, but if they are like half a beat long, it will not mute the slider. Yeah, then here you can like define with the none thing, you can define what sample set the muted thing should be, etc. Input all beatsnap devices separated with commas, blah blah. So you can here even have like really weird numbers that are not supported by the editor, like 4-5, as it says. You can even put in decimal like pi or something. Anything, any number you can input into this thing will probably work, even if it's not actually supported by the beat subdivisor in game or something. Yeah. Now, copy sample sets. You probably also want to have that almost always on. It is just if you have custom hit sounds enabled or something with different sample set indexes, kind of have to leave that option on. Otherwise, it won't copy it over. I guess unless you maybe want to copy over hit sounds, but apply different customs to your map, then you might want to disable this. Something like that. Copy volumes. You should probably also most of the time have it on, unless the thing you're copying from, I guess, has bad volume changes, or like the volume changes are unnecessary or something like that. You can probably imagine what kind of cases you would run into where that would be useful to turn off. Same with always preserve 5% volume. So that's like if you have if the map you're copying to already has muted slider ends. If you enable that option, then the hit sound copier won't just overwrite them. Otherwise, it will like I say you have a section where the general volume is 100%, but then occasionally you put in 5% volume changes to mute slider ends. If you turn that option off, it will keep all the green lines, I believe, but it will make them 100% volume. Well, if you press this button, it will keep the 5%. Now, if you make your muted slider ends 6% volume, then I guess you're just kind of fucked. So you should always set it to 5. Copy storyboard samples. I believe that will only copy it will copy sounds from the storyboard, but it will not copy your hit sounds and make them storyboard hit sounded samples. If you don't know what storyboard hit sounds are, basically you can play sound effects in a storyboard which they don't have to be mapped to any sound, they can just be played back at a certain offset time. Not a lot of people use those, but there can be some interesting use cases for those, I guess. Like if I don't know, if there's like say a break section and the storyboarder is trying to do something, or if there's like if it's a story-driven storyboard or something, you want to have sound effects in it or something. Don't copy storyboard samples that are already played by the hit sounds. Pretty straightforward option below here too, I guess. Should probably most of the time, if you have this button on, you should have this one on as well. Unless you want to somehow have the storyboard and the hit sounds in the map like doubling in some way, which I don't know why you would want that. What is with the grayed out options? Oh, okay. So if you change it to only override defined, those two options will appear. Those two checkboxes you can then click as well now, which is the copy to slider tick. So if you have hit sounds that are let's say you have a snare hit sound in the hit sound difficulty, but in your map it's there is a slider there where the sound is. There's a slider body there. If you then enable this option, it will copy the hit sound to the slider tick or slider slide. I think that can be useful maybe if you're copying over to a easy difficulty where you maybe just ignoring drums in general. But honestly, if you don't have that on, it's not really that important. And also it doesn't really add much to the map. At higher difficulties, it can even be kind of confusing. So, I don't know. Turn it on if you feel like slider tick hit sounds are a thing you want. Would not recommend the copy to slider slides option. That's probably in case you want to have the hit sound playing, but you don't have a slider tick where that sound is. I believe the ranking criteria has something saying that you shouldn't do that. You should like try to change the slider tick value so it actually lines up with the sound that you want. You would use this in like the red anchor passive rhythm, I think. Maybe you would. But honestly, it's not a big deal if you don't. I've never really used the option myself, but I mean, I think it is rankable if you have it on slider ticks. That can work in lower difficulties, but anywhere else it's not really recommended. Would recommend reading the ranking criteria on that if you want to use it or something. Anyway, so that's hit sound copy up. Any questions on hit sound copy up so far? Obviously, I think with this tool you don't have to actually select the thing at a map at the top with the open current beat map thing. Yeah. I mean, I guess it is a pretty straightforward tool. It's just copying hit sounds. Yeah. And again, really useful thing is clicking this folder button here and then selecting multiple difficulties to copy to. So you don't have to like change this difficulty 5 times or something. Yeah. Okay, I think we will talk about Hitsaw and Studio and Preview Helper maybe at the end as well, or later. I can definitely talk about them. So Map Cleaner, that one is relatively useful. Basically, if you open a map with the Open Current Beat Map button, and then run the tool, there are these different options you can enable or disable that are supposed to like reduce the file size of your map in some way. So the Analyze Samples button, what it basically does is if you hit sound a map, it's mostly useful if you're hit sounding with hit sound Preview Helper and hit sound Studio, because hit sound Studio is kind of like often generating a lot more custom sample sets than it needs to and stuff like that. Basically, if you press select then this option and run the tool, it will like analyze how the samples are used and try to reduce the amount of custom indexes and samples in your mapset folder as much as possible. I don't have much experience with using that so far because it's a little bit new, but I assume it works mostly well. Next one is resnap objects. That one is kind of self-explanatory. If you run the tool, it will just resnap every object in your map. What it will resnap to kind of depends what you input into this beat divisor signatures thing at the bottom. So if you have 1-5 rhythms in your map, you have to like go comma 1/5. Otherwise it will just resnap them to something else. Yeah, if you change offset, it can work out. It depends by how much you change the offset. Because obviously what can also happen is that it resnaps your entire map, but 1/16 too late or something, or 1/4 too late or too early. So you have to be a little bit careful with that, but it kind of solves a lot of those issues. It's definitely a lot better than the in the standard editor. There is already an option kind of like this to resnap every object automatically, but it's bad. It doesn't actually work well. So this one is basically a better version of that one. Yeah, it's really bad in the default editor. And I think the default editor doesn't resnap bookmarks. And this one can resnap bookmarks. Yay! I mean, they're bookmarks, so it's not that useful, but it can be kinda good, I guess. Obviously there's this thing here to remove all hit sounds from your map. I think the default editor has that as well. I'm not sure if that one is bad, but I assume if this option is in here, either it's in here for convenience or it has to be bad in the default editor as well. So, I mean, most of the time you probably don't want to enable this option, but it is here. Then below it is removed unused samples. That one is obviously good if you have, this tool automatically deletes green lines that are, I believe, unused. Wait, why did I say unused? The tool automatically deletes green lines that are like redundant. So like if there's a green line, and then that's 100% sample set index 1, same as previously. Like if all the same settings of a green line are the same, it doesn't add anything new. This program will just remove it automatically. Yeah. I think that's not even an option that you can select in here. It is just automatically doing it. Then obviously can remove muting, so remove 5% volume changes or not. And the same thing kind of that we had in Hitsang Copier, where you can mute all like all spinner and slider ends reverse arrows. You can mute all of them. Defined by the signature stuff here, I believe. I wouldn't recommend having that on, really, unless you again have the certain kind of mapping style where it just makes sense to mute every passive object, or if you like really define the numbers in here for it to work out. It doesn't have the minimum slider length option, unlike hits on copy, yeah. So yeah, be aware of that. No, obviously, with the map info stuff at the bottom here, when it deletes green lines, it will also delete certain green lines that are in a lot of maps kind of unnecessary. Like if you have volume changes within a slider, oftentimes when you copy from either a hit sounding diff or a top diff to a lower diff, it will copy all the green lines over, even if they're like aren't sounds that are mapped. So you might have that case where in your top diff there is a sound mapped with a green line on it, but then in the easy difficulty it's just a slider slide, and then you have this extra green line in there. So by default, Mapset Cleaner will remove those green lines as well. But there are some cases where you actually want to like change the volume of a slider slide, I guess. So if you have that, then you have to enable this option, obviously. Then same with sample set changes. I believe the sample set changes thing, currently when you want to change volume within a slider, you have to change sample set as well. Like if you change the volume from 10% to 50%, the slider slide won't actually get louder because of some stupid reason, because of a bug or whatever, the editor is just bad. So you have to change the sample set index from 1 to 2 as well, or something like that. And in which case, it will obviously delete the green line unless you define that, unless you click that option here. Same with volume changes within spinners. So sometimes people do that thing where if you have like a reversing sound that's getting louder over time and you have a spinner over it, it can be nice to start at 5% volume and then slowly increase the volume of the spinner spin as the sound gets louder. But if you don't have that enabled, it will just delete it. It will just assume, oh, it must be an error by copying green lines from the top diff to do a lower difficulties. Whatever. So yeah, that tool can also be run with the quick run function. Should I mention anytime there's this blue lightning symbol, it means that you can, in the preferences, select this. So now if I have nothing selected, it will just run map set cleaner. You can define that. Yeah. I assume there is nothing really to ask about this tool, but does anyone have any questions? Fun fact, you can save certain presets for this one, almost with like any tool. So you could like have a preset that's like every button selected. Let me remove some so I don't forget. Okay. Yeah, this tool is the most straightforward one, and probably also one of the more useful ones. If you have an entire map set done and you want to go for rank, can use it. Okay. Now, metadata manager. That one's nice. Now you can see my real life name as well. Again. Anyway. So similar to Combo Color Studio or Hits and Copier, with this one again, you can straight up copy the metadata from one set to another. So I'll change the stream quickly to OS again. Okay. Let's say I want to map Harumachi Clover. This is my Harumachi Clover. But let's say my metadata is just really bad. It's like Harumachi Clover, Harumachi Clover, Harumachi Clover. I don't know. Help. I don't know how to metadata. What I can do is go to some ranked Harumachi Clover. That's not ranked. This one is ranked. And now I can go to map set. Let me change again. Oh, it wasn't. Okay, I wasn't recording it. I think I wasn't recording a lot of mapping tools. That's kind of bad. Fuck. Anyway. That's fine. So now if we go to the tool and we click the button. So this is the ranked map set by Lasse or whatever. I can now press the import metadata button and it changed all the settings to the metadata from Lasse set or whatever. Now obviously the BBAP set creator is not me. So what I have to do is I have to like change this setting, of course. If I now go to the map I selected earlier, as well, again, with this one as well, you can do this thing where if you press the folder, you can copy the hit sounding to, not the hit sounding, the metadata to multiple different diffs. This can be really useful because, not sure if any of you have ever noticed, but when you change the tags, or when you, let's say when you create a diff, then you create a bunch of other lower difficulties or whatever, and then at one point at the end, when you've made everything, you decide, I want to put tags into my map now, right at the end. You might discover that it will only add them to a single difficulty and not all the other ones, unless you added tags right at the start when you made the first difficulty, and then whenever you created a newer one, it basically copied the tags over already. But in most cases, or in a lot of cases, you won't set the tags at the start, and then you have to like go into every difficulty and change it individually. except there is now this tool where I can just go to my map set. Say I get the map set folder. Then why does it not do it? Okay. Oh yeah, there. Okay, I go to the map set folder. Now I select every difficulty. So I have 6 difficulties now selected. I can now just apply these exact tags to every difficulty at once, instead of going to the easy diff, changing, copy pasting, going to the normal diff, copy pasting, going to the blah 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 blah. You can now just do it with one single button click, basically. Same with preview time. Preview time, or the preview point, doesn't copy over between diffs, so you might sometimes have issues where if you create difficulty, or if you change the preview point because someone is telling you to in one diff, it won't change in all the other diffs. But with this tool, you can now just apply it to every single one at once. You don't have to go into every difficulty in an annoying way and change it. Very useful for reuser ICA 50 diff map sets. Yes, but I mean not just for those sets. Like you wouldn't believe how often I've made map sets, and then right at the end when I had every difficulty, then I added the tags, or like someone gave me an idea to add certain tags into the map set, but then I've only applied them to the top diff and not the other diffs. Even if you only have 5 difficulties, it's just a lot nicer if you can do it with this tool with just one button click, or I guess 1 or 2 button clicks, instead of going into every single difficulty. Especially if I guess that if you have 50 difficulties. I mean, what it's also useful for, again, is this case where, let's say I want to map something that is already ranked. I can just get the metadata, yoink it, yoink the tags as well. Why not? Let's go. Yeah. Now, there's also this option to remove duplicate tags. That's a good one. I can even steal the combo colors while I'm at it, or make sure that the combo colors between all the diffs are the same. Most of the time, you want a color option to be disabled, probably, because it can like fuck up your color hexing if you used Combo Color Studio or whatever. So I would just leave it off. Another thing this tool is useful for is, let's say we go. Actually, let me just apply how it is right now. Or wait, I'll put in the map set host. The map set is obviously not by me, so if I now run the tool, it applied it to the map. And now, if we change the stream to also again, you can now see that it correctly applied the metadata to the diff we had earlier. Okay, now, yeah, let me change the recording as well. Okay, yeah, you can see it's applied, it's all correct. It's not Harumachi Clover anymore. Now, what I wanted to say earlier is the other thing this tool is really useful for is, let's say, I'm gonna be funny about it. Let's say I go to a random Kazakh map. Yeah, let's go to this random Kazakh map. Let's import the metadata. And let's change the beatmap set creator to Celektus. And then there is this handy little button in the mapping tools metadata thing, which is to reset the beatmap set ID. So if we look into your folder and open your .osu, what's the beatmap set ID? We can see that the beatmap set ID of your map is 3733200 or whatever. Actually, that's the beatmap ID. The beatmap set ID is 1819407 or whatever. Now, again, as I mentioned, there's this. I can change the beatmap set creator, and then there was this checkbox that you can't see anymore, but I can show you it in a second, where it says reset beatmap set beatmap ID. If I now run the tool and I go out of this map, well, it's now my map. And I believe I can now upload this map as well. So I can now literally steal your map, Kazaks. No, but for real, what does this probably actually useful for is there's this like really common bug, or like if you make a guess difficulty for someone, you just want to upload it on its own to your graveyard or something. Now with that tool, you can now instantly fix this map set is not yours issue. Yeah, so let me open up mapping tools again. Again, it was intended because I just don't want to switch between screens 5 times. So what you can see here is the metadata from your map. I just put in Celektus as the beatmap set creator, and I selected this reset beatmap set ID option. Then I pressed the button and ran the tool. Obviously, before that I imported your metadata or whatever. But yeah, that is how you can basically now without in the last like 7-hour tutorial or whatever, we had that one explanation how to do this, but now you can do it in this way where you click this button and just just type it in. Yeah, so that's what this can be useful for if you ever want to upload a guest difficulty made for somewhere else or something, or I don't know, you want to steal a beat map. Now you can do it. Wouldn't recommend stealing a beat map, but yeah. What else is there? You can add colors if you haven't added them already. What is this? Special color. What is a special color? I think I don't care. Any questions about this tool? Never steal a car. Yeah, any questions about Metadata Manager? Again, as with every tool, you can save certain options and stuff. So right now I could save this. If I ever want to steal Kazak's map in the future, I can just like apply this to my map. In fact, I can call every map that I make from in future now Freezer featuring Kichigo. No questions? Okay. I haven't actually tested if I can upload the map now. I kind of don't want to. If anyone is willing to test it out right now, if you want to take it's probably safest if you do it with a guess difficulty instead of just literally stealing something. But yeah. Oh, I forgot on the stream, on the recording, I didn't change the window. So yeah, there's the option. Name changed. Oh, let me check the beatmap set ID as well. Because it should be a different number now. Yeah, it's just reset to beatmap set ID 0 minus and set ID 1 minus 1. I have some map to do this. It's a guest diff for graveyard set of someone else. This would work. Guest diff for graveyard set of someone else. So you want to take your guest difficulty and upload it on its own as yours? Then yeah, that would be possible. I think you would first have to delete all the other difficulties and stuff, but it should work basically. Whenever you do something like this, I would always recommend going to files in the editor and going export package, so your map is like, you have like a backup. How do I upload a guest difficulty of someone else instead? Oh, like, is the beatmap set creator not yours? Okay, so I mean, I guess you have you already uploaded your set? Because it would work if you put it into your set and you reset. Okay, so there would be an issue if your set was already uploaded, because it would have a ID, and if you then reset the ID, you would basically upload your map twice, if that makes sense. So what you have, if you don't, since you haven't uploaded it, you could basically take the diff, add it to your map set. You might have to like resolve some file conflicts or something, like hit sounding stuff or whatever, blah blah blah. Basically, you put it into your map set, and then with metadata manager, you would import the metadata from your diff. I don't know if, yeah, you would import it from your diff, and then select the one from your friend as the one to copy the metadata to. Then make sure that the beatmap set creator name is your name, and then you can press the reset beatmap set ID thing, and it will basically automatically fix it. Oh, you should then obviously change the, what's it? Isn't that diff name here? I think there is a diff name. The diff name option might only appear if it's if it is actually a different difficulty or something. But obviously you would have to change that. You just have to make sure that both of them are in the same folder, and that you haven't uploaded the map. Then it should work, I think. Yeah. Because if they're in a different folder, then it will just be a different set. If they're in the same folder, but your map has already been uploaded, you will upload your map twice. Or like your map will appear twice on the website, I think. Well, anyway, I guess that's enough for this tool. Next one would be pattern gallery. So pattern gallery is kind of cute. Now, when you press the project button, there are a few more options now. Instead of just save, load, and new, there's now rename collection, import collection, and export collection. So if I press the export collection button, oh, could not find this user, blah blah. So I guess so I can't do it right now because I have some weird directory paths, blah blah. But I could, technically speaking, take this collection that I have right now of objects here, export it, and then send it in chat or something like that. And then with the import collection button, you could have all the patterns that I have. I already stole all your patterns. Nice. Since the last time I posted them in here, there was a few new sliders, like there's some 0pp sliders and some other stuff. But whatever. Not that useful. You can also just make different, like this is one big collection for me, but I could make multiple ones and call them different names to be a bit more organized. I just don't choose not to. I just choose to have a huge ass list because I don't care. Yeah. I'm not sure what the save or load project options will do in this tool. If it will automatically open up a certain collection. I believe that's probably the case, and then have all the buttons on the right side selected to something. How would you use patterns though? So there are multiple different like special cases. Like, do you change the speed? Oh yeah, I can explain that in a second. So I'm not sure if we necessarily have to wait for CAD, but I mean, I will show a demonstration later anyway. So the but first of all, the 4 buttons at the bottom here, those are used for importing or deleting certain patterns. And a pattern in Pattern Gallery can basically be anything ranging from a singular object in a certain position on screen, arranged in a certain way, with some SV and some comboing or hit sounding or whatever, to you can copy entire maps with Pattern Gallery and then copy them and paste them somewhere else. You can maybe even multiple maps together. Although I'm not sure how exactly, but you can basically do some stuff where if you selected the .osu code option, you could then do some really complex kind of stuff with it. Basically, whatever is possible with .osu code, you could put it in here. It's totally possible. You know, obviously, when I click the buttons at the top here, there are different ways to sort stuff, like by name, by how much I've used stuff. Like at the top would be a stack. I can get to why it's a stack in a little bit. That's actually a really useful tip. How many objects are in it, how long the duration of the pattern is, how many beats it is, when it was created and last used, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not sure how the add a pattern from a file option works. I think that's if you save something as a collection, within that collection, the patterns are going to be saved with a certain file format, and then you could exchange individual just patterns in pattern gallery. But the most useful option is just add a pattern from selected objects. So to do that, let's just quickly change screen again. So I'll stream oath. I used the pattern as a file to steal the patterns, since they were all files. Yep. Otherwise, the most useful option probably would be to use the import collection button at, under projects, so you don't have to import individual patterns or something like that. But anyway, let's just go into CAD's map and right now test out how the tool works, or like the selected thing. So let's say I select all those objects. Change it in recording. Now you can't see that, but I can show you in a second. I could press the add a pattern from selected hit objects button in mapping tools. Change to mapping tools. Now we could just call this CADZAX 1. Accept. Now I've added, where is it? Time of creation. Here's the CADZAX pattern. Okay, CAD, that's fine. I just stole a pattern from your map. Let's go. So I have this pattern now. What I could do with it obviously is I could now randomly go into a different part of CAD's map. And let's say, so there are different options to put it in, but we're just going to ignore a little bit of that for now. Let's just select it. I do file open current beat map, press the button. Let's change stream quickly to OS. change it in a recording. Now, if I press Control L to reload, here is this pattern that I've stolen from here. I think it will be slightly different because I have some options enabled that make it slightly different. First steal the map, then the patterns. True. I'm stealing everything from Cat. He's gonna be in shambles right now. So anyway, now I could obviously paste this one multiple times, just because. Or whatever. I could even take this entire bit of Cat's map and take it and then put it into a different map set. Obviously, I just pasted it into the same map, which is not really useful because I can just do this. Duh. But obviously, the useful thing about this tool is that I can take this and I put it into a different map. In fact, I can put it into a different map with different circle sizes, SV, rhythms, BPM, etc. And certain options in Pattern Gallery will kind of fix those issues. So if we go back into mapping tools, where is it? There it is. You can see that like at the right side, there are certain options. For example, the one at the top is basically where the objects where exactly they will be pasted. So it's set, if it's set to current, it will just place the pattern or the start of the pattern wherever I am scrolled in the timeline of a map. So as you saw earlier, when I was just like in a certain point in the timeline, I pressed the button, thing popped up exactly there. If I change it to custom, I can now insert a timestamp of where I want the pattern to be inserted. If I change it to pattern, then how does that work? That one is I don't use that often. Extra time in milliseconds around the pattern for deleting the original part. So parting distance. I don't use some of the more complex options a lot, but there are some useful ones. Most of the time, you can just copy something over relatively easy if you have just set it to current. Have to beat up the visor to correct and then just press the button. But obviously, there's going to be some exceptions. The partition override mode, timing override mode, those are like determining whether when you paste something in, it will, like if you paste the pattern over something that already exists, whether it will delete everything and just have your pattern there, or whether it will just paste it over it as 2B objects, etc. Or something like that. Like no override will be, it will just paste it as 2B objects, and then complete override will be it will delete everything. I think partition override is a little bit more specific, but I don't quite know how that one works. No, there's probably some way to find that out if you just test around a little bit. I don't know. Sadly, don't know enough about it. Then the timing override thing is sort of like whether it will just take the original timing of the patterns and just paste it in, or whether it will somehow fix it in a certain way, like relative to the pattern or whatever. Usually those two options, I just have them not changed at all. I haven't really encountered a case where I have to change those two yet, but it might be a thing that you have to look into in the future. The most useful options are probably at the bottom, where it's like whether you want to include hit sounds, obviously. Sometimes that might be useful, sometimes not. If you just want to put paste the pattern into your map and it is like a different song or something, don't include hit sounds, just hit sound it on your own. the hit zones could be wrong. Same with KI. The more interesting one is scale to new circle size. So I might have an interesting example for that one. Let me find it. Okay. So let's change the stream to those. Some of you might know this map from Jordan, which is basically, it's a CS10 map where it's objects are arranged like this. Scale by new CS, it wasn't on by default. Yeah, he mapped it on stream, exactly. So I'm gonna do something interesting with this map, which is so just to show the difference between what the CS thing does, I will press Ctrl A, selecting every object in the map, and then I will save this pattern, save it into pattern gallery as Jordan's expert. So now I have this entire map is now in my pattern gallery. Now let's see, let's make a new difficulty and call this one scale to new CS. Let's start fresh and make the CS like, I don't know, make it 5. Now, if I insert John's map into this one with the scale circle size thing on, let me find the first like object where it exactly is. Here. Okay. If I now import it, the entire map is now copied over into bigger circle size. This is probably too big. Let's go like, let's try 6.4 or something. So run again. There, John's entire map is now just copied over. Now, you might notice that also, it's not just that it just copied the exact map over in like, let's say I've created a new difficulty and I call it X. And let's just start fresh. Let's now copy John's map just with Control C and put it into this one. Well, you might see that now, because it's a different CS, everything is just in the same position on screen. It's obviously wrong. All the spacing and everything is all smushed together. It doesn't work at all. While the one I copied over with pattern gallery, rip, wrong one. This one, all the spacing, all the visual spacing and actual spacing between objects is exactly as it should be. So now I just made Jordan's interesting CS10 map into a boring CS 6.4 map. Yeah, there might be some cases where you want to have it turned off, but usually it's kind of good to have it turned on. Interesting thing about it is basically that you can, if you copy patterns over, and let's say you have a map that you're working on something that's like CS2 or CS10 and stuff, but you still want it to look the same, then you have to enable that option. Now you may or may not want that. Most of the time it's probably kind of useful. It wasn't used for single sliders, so it didn't matter. Yeah, for single sliders, it kind of does matter as well, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, but, or at least if you have, say, a slider and then there's an object around it, that will kind of like at least fix that. Okay, now, so that explains that specific function, which is really nice. I since I make sometimes maps that are like weird CS, it's really useful for that one. If I ever encounter a situation where I have to copy something, it would be a good to use pattern gallery for blankets. Maybe. I found some other interesting uses for pattern gallery. Some of them I will get to in a second or whatever. So besides the scale to new circle size, there are obviously the buttons like the scale to new timing, snap to new timing, etc., which are supposed to like fix if the map is a different BPM or if the slider velocity, the base slider velocity or something is different. Same with fix slider tick rate. I think slider tick rate though is going to be since it's going to add red lines just to it's going to change the BPM of the map or add a red line just to add slider ticks. It's going to be unrankable, but I mean still interesting option. Fix color X is also relatively simple. It's relatively similar with fix global SV and fix BPM. Sometimes you might run into cases where you want to have those features turned off. But usually all the ones I basically on right now, those are like you can usually just keep them on and everything will be fine until it isn't. Then you have to change it. An interesting one is manualify stacks. So you might have noticed right at the top was my most used pattern gallery pattern is a singular stack. I just went into the game, made a stack, and then put it into pattern gallery. You might wonder why the fuck would I do that? The interesting thing about it is just that I can now put perfect stacks into my maps, but they are manual stacks. So I just have the manualify stack option on, and it will put stacks into my maps, and then I can flip them around, etc. Yeah, so that's the main thing about that one. I just have the singular stack here because I generally like making maps where all stacks are manual, even if it's lower difficulties. And that's why I have it. And I use it relatively often. Triple stack is probably also relatively similar. Just, I mean, can maybe speed up a little bit if you just press the button. Already puts down 3 objects. I wonder if there's anything else. Oh. Some uses I got out of the tool as well is there's this. Whoa, rip. There's a slider here called circle slider. And I often use that one in conjunction with another tool, which is slider completeator. Maybe I can show what that object looks like. I can just post it into chat or something. Then show it in the recording. That's what it looks like. So it's just like a perfectly round slider. What I sometimes do then with slider completeator is if I want to have a slider that's exactly a quarter of a circle or exactly half a circle or a fifth of a circle, I can, with slider completeator, I can automatically adjust the length of it. Yeah. I think I have even some saved, which are time of creation, like, oh, rip, fuck. 90-degree slider, something like that. Yeah, it could be. Or at the very least, it's kind of fits the way I'm mapping because I'm just very particular, perfect. Oh, what the fuck? Um, can you hear me well, or am I like quiet or something? Okay. Hopefully Jordan will cut that out. Uh, Anyway, where were we? Let's. Oh, I think. Uh, um. Uh, what? Okay, works now. Okay. Well, anyway, so let me check something quick. Okay, let's just move. I think we can move already on to the next tool, because there isn't that much to talk about pattern gallery anymore. Um, just there are probably some other useful kind of things that you can like discover while playing around with it. Like the thing that I did by just saving a perfect circle or something. There are tons of things like that. If you're just experimenting around with it, you can probably find some way to use it. A pattern from here. Well, I mean, you can see it at the top with the use count. There are some patterns that I use like, it says 24 times, but I think I've used it a bit more uh, into making a new slider. I think there are certain sliders that I do repeat. There are some sliders that I just make with, say, a slider merger or something. Because with a lot of them, the size is going to kind of depend more on the timing or whatever. Like even if I put in something from here into my map, I might have to scale it down or something. Uh, instead of it automatically just changing the SV. I think there are some. I'm starting to use it a bit more as I'm playing around with it, but I'm still not like there aren't like objects that I'm using constantly or something. And most of the time I just make sliders from scratch. Because I'm also not the kind of guy that uses a lot of repeating sliders. If you have a certain style where there are some basic shapes that you just repeat everywhere, like some tech mappers do or something like that, I guess, or some like mappers in a particular style, like people that do pink art style stuff, or that map metal or whatever with guitar solo like sliders. You can probably use that one a lot. This tool, yeah. It's a bit clunky because I can't see how the pattern looks before adding it to them. Yeah, you kind of have to, when to sort of get around it, you just have to like memorize the names of everything, or like obviously it's most useful if you actually put in everything yourself, because then when you name it yourself, you will remember it a lot more easily, as opposed to me just going guitar solo slider 5. Actually, I don't even remember how that one looks like. Sometimes I have to test around a little bit as well. With some of them I do know how they look like. But oftentimes it's just like, put the slider into my map. Oh, wrong one, just delete it, whatever. That's kind of how I use it. At least for certain ones. Oh, I accidentally keep minimizing it. Anyway, what's the next tool? Property transformer. Property transformer is basically a calculator. So, I've never really used property transformer, but I imagine it could be kind of useful. Because again, it is basically just a calculator. You can just input an offset in a BPM. Like, let's say you have a slider velocity and it's like 1.2 blah 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 blah. Oh no, it is. Let's say I have a certain slider velocity and I want to make it next green line twice as fast or something, or all the green lines in my map I want to make them twice as fast or something like that. That's what that tool can be used for. I've never really used it myself. There might be some use cases for it. Oh, rip. That you can have certain filters of what things to apply and what not to apply and stuff. Parameters must match this variable to be eligible for change. Parameters must not match this variable to not to be eligible for change. Blah blah blah. And you can find a starting point where all of the stuff will get applied, and an end time will get applied. So you could do something like offset 0, offset to 1 minute, and then it can go. The BPM from 0 to 1 minute will just be plus 20. It's gonna be 20 BPM. Oh, it's offset. It's gonna be 20 offset. Everything is gonna be offset by 20. You can do stuff like that, sort of. Or again, here are all the options where you can multiply stuff and add here. Same with hitch objects, video time, preview time, blah blah blah. Yeah. I haven't experimented around with it enough to give any useful examples of cool stuff. So yeah, let's just go to the next tool, which is Ribbon Guide. Ribbon Guide is something about that tool is you never really use it on your on its own. Usually it is used in conjunction with hit some preview helper. There's this button down here that just opens up this window. Can you see that? Oh, you can't see it in the recording, but you can see it in. Oh, you can see it in the stream either. I guess I'll just have to make a screenshot. Oh, this. Get that window when you press this button down here. might be able to record it, but I have to do like a workaround. No capture. Let's see if that works. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Now go in this way. So basically, Ribbon Guide is inside hits on preview helper, and what it's kind of used for is that, let's say you're hit sounding a map. You're making a hit sound diff, and the hit sound diff is completely empty. Let's say the map is already made, and oh, mic is getting worse. So it's still okay. Oh, okay. Better now? Okay. So, what this tool is basically for is if you're making it sound diff and the map is already made. Let's say you wanted to know what rhythms are in the map. If you're hit sounding with hit sound preview helper, most of the time you're going to be hit sounding in the main year editor. What you can just do basically is import all the rhythm of the already finished map into the difficulty with this tool, put it to the side, and then when you hit sounding, you can always have this reference at the side as to what the map is actually going to be doing while you're hit sounding. So it could be that, say, there's an overmapped stream in the map, and if you're hit sounding it and don't know that, would be bad, because you should hit sound an overmapped stream just to give it more feedback or something. With the rhythm guide, you could just put it in and then you see it. I can show that how it exactly works a little bit later, if I'm maybe still have time to talk about all the hit sounding stuff. I'm not gonna be actually hit sounding, but yeah, whatever. So that's what rhythm guide is for. There's obviously this where to copy the rhythm from and where to copy it to. There's the whether you just want to add it to an existing map or make a new one. Whether it's supposed to be, which game mode it's supposed to be, blah blah. Whether it's supposed to copy every event or just hit sound at once. Whether everything is supposed to be new comboed. Blah 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 blah. Diff name, yeah. Slider completionator. That one is really interesting and really useful. I've in the low difficulty lecture we had, I kind of already showed how you can like sort of use it to, or if you have a song where you have a song where there's a bunch of red lines and you have to put the slider end exactly where you want it, you can use this tool for it. But there's obviously a bunch of other useful things to do. So similar to another tool, there's this option at the top with how an object is going to be selected, or which objects are going to be completionated. Whether it's the objects you select in a map, whether it's objects you have bookmarked, or objects that appear around bookmarks, whether it's a specific timestamp, or the entire map. So something it can, technically speaking, I guess, do is you copy an entire map over somewhere else, and then you can make every slider automatically adjusted to just be snapped correctly. I use this often with and gallery sliders to make the patterns fit the map, to find SV to make it fit. Yeah, that could be useful. I think in pattern gallery, if you play around with some of the drop downs or the checkboxes, you could probably already get that kind of result without using this tool. Yeah. But this tool, besides that, is also just really useful. And there are some interesting things to use it in conjunction with pattern gallery. Okay, maybe show an example. But I mean, just to basically explain how it works, whenever you have any kind of slider, this tool has three variables. It has the duration of the slider, the length of it, so the length of its visual path, and slider velocity. What you can do is you can basically, the tool can automatically change one of those variables, like the velocity, the length, or duration, based on the other two. So if I have a certain slider and it's not snapped to anything, I can make it perfectly snap to where I want it to be by typing in how long I want the slider to be. Like say here in the duration window, I could type in 4 or something. Let's say I have a slider that's 1 beat long. If I want to make it, I just want to make it 4 beats. Now, if I press the button, the run button, it would make this, that would change the slider velocity to be a fourth, or it would, yeah, basically it would change the slider velocity so that the slider is changed from 1 beat to 4 beats. Now, obviously, if it's a weird number, like let's say I have a slider that's 47 beats and I want it to be 34 beats instead. Obviously, you could somehow work that out with math or whatever, and then get the right slider velocity, or you could just make the tool do it for you. And even, in fact, there might be some changes that are impossible to do with green lines. In that case, you could press the delegate SV to BPM button, in which case you can make any slider however long you want. But if it adds a red line, a BPM, it will basically be unrankable. Yeah, length is kind of a big brain option. And obviously, as it says with the tooltip, whenever you type in -1, actually with length it's just 1. -1 might also work, but if you put in -1, it's just going to be nothing. It's unchanged. It's just how it is. Same with I think velocity. If I put in -1, it will just inherit whatever slider velocity I currently have. Yeah, you can use the delegate SV to BPM thing, because SV can only go from 0.1, no, it was 0.01 to I think 10, something like that. Anything above or below, you need to add a red line with really high BPM or low BPM, but that's unrankable. So only if you're trying to make something really, if you're trying to make something unrankable. Now, the most probably useful one is velocity. Well, if you just want the slider to be, let's say it's actually, you can kind of use pattern gallery is a good example. Let's say you have a 3-4 beat slider in pattern gallery and you want it to be half a beat long for whatever cursed reason. Then slider velocity would be a good way to basically keep the exact same shape, but now it's a different rhythm because it's just made faster. Well, the length thing, that one can be useful if you really want to keep the SV the same, basically. Or the length one can be used to make certain particular shapes that you want. So if we go back to our perfect circle slider, actually, before that, so let's make the free variable length. The duration in beats, I just keep it to -1 or whatever, doesn't matter. Let me check the slider velocity. Actually, yeah, slider velocity -1 as well. Oh wait, no. I want the duration to be the free variable. And now let's say I want the path to be 0.25. So that's, actually, can I type in fractions? I've never even tested that. It's fine. 0.25. So that would be a quarter of something. Now, if we change the stream, we go from mapping tools to pose. We have our perfect circle here. If we now select it and run the tool, and then reload. Oh, yeah. So now it took the perfectly circular slider and it made it into a perfectly a quarter of a circle. Because I defined the length, the visual path of it to be only a quarter as much. Now that I have this one, I can actually do something else. If I now changed it, let me save the map. So now the length will basically be reset. This is now just the length of the slider. So if I wanted to change this one again, in mapping tools, the length would now have to be 1 for it to stay the exact same. Let's say I want it to be longer. I want the shape to be longer based on what I have on screen right now. So if I go to mapping tools and I change the length, the variable I changed earlier to 2, and then I run the tool, it now extends the slider like this. Because it doesn't know what exactly to do after this curve, it just extends it with a straight line or whatever. So that can be used to make interesting shapes, I guess. It's new to me that they've added a red anchor here, so I guess I could also just change it like this now. Oh. That does look kind of wrong. Should be more like this or something. Or yeah, something like that. So basically, the tool can be kind of used to create shapes in a kind of way. Or like, we can use pattern gallery in conjunction with it to have, say, a basic shape like a perfect circle to then get that thing. Let me quickly change something. Let's import the circle back in. Or actually, let's import this one back in, because I've saved one like that before. The interesting thing about that one is now if I scale it, it's going to stay exactly a quarter of a circle. It's just that it's going to be a bigger or a smaller circle. So that can be kind of useful. Because now I can just arrange all the sliders in my maps to be these exact 90-degree angles or whatever. Even if I scale them and stuff. Incredible, right? So that's one use case for it. There are probably 1,000 others. Like, let's say I have the slider, and then again, as said earlier, I just want it to be only exactly 1 beat long. Or let's say I make some slider art. Wow, incredible slider, by which I mean it looks ugly. Like, let's say I made this slider art now. Looks incredible. Totally not absolutely random. I could obviously have it be a pretty specific exact size by using this tool, by either changing the SV or by just making it perfectly shorter. Now, obviously, if I wanted to do it in the editor and like say manually make it slightly shorter, it's going to be kind of imperfect. Like I'm going to move around this in some way if I whatever. I can't just reduce this down to here without it having some kind of human error in it, unless I'm using the tool. And obviously, if I also scale stuff, it can sometimes happen that like I have the anchor the slider end anchor is like over here, even though the shape is here. I believe the tool will take that into account in different ways. So if we go back to mapping tools, wrong mapping tool, but doesn't matter. There's like this move anchor to new length option, which is basically if you have this enabled, it will put the last anchor that you just saw that was like not exactly what a slider end is, it will put it exactly what a slider end is after whatever change you applied. Which can obviously be useful because then you can just press Ctrl G without it accidentally changing the slider shape in some way. If the slider end anchor is not exactly where the slider end is, pressing Ctrl G sometimes can fuck up the shape in some way. Do you know that? Or do I have to like show it? How it like fucks up shape? Well, the question was, do you know what I mean? Like, let's say you make a wave slider. Have you ever noticed that when you press Ctrl G on it, for some reason, it changes the shape? Okay. Well, basically, that's because the slider end anchor is not exactly where the slider end is. You can oftentimes just solve that issue in the editor if you just scale it. Yeah, PGVet made a video about it. And oftentimes you can just say, well, he mentioned it in a video. You can, what I want to say is, you can solve that issue oftentimes if you just scale the slider down perfectly so the slider end anchor is exactly where the slider end is. But this tool, I guess, there's just this option that it automatically does it for you. And as with many other options, sometimes you might want to have it disabled. Can't think of any reason on top of my head, but sometimes might make sense. The slider end time thing, that can be kind of useful. If I say go to slider velocity now, it changes the duration thing. Instead of me having to type in, say, oh, I want my slider to, if I want the slider, say, to start on a white anchor and on a white tick and end on a blue tick or something, might have to think about, okay, so is it like 0.75 of a beat or something? So one way where you don't have to think about that at all is just you enable the use slider end button. And then I can just go into the editor, press Control C, exactly where I want my slider to end. Then I paste the timestamp in here. Then it automatically changes it to that. Of course, that can be useful if you, again, have a map with a bunch of redline spam everywhere and you want your slider end to exactly be on a new timing point or even after a new timing point somewhere. Instead of typing in some really, really weirdly specific number of the duration of the slider, which you can't even know, you can now just use the slider end time. Yeah. Similar to the remove slider tick option in pattern gallery or a bunch of other tools. This one, you can only enable it if you have delegate SV to BPM enabled, and both of these options are unrankable. Yeah. And it is, with remove slider ticks, I believe what it does is basically it will change the BPM to be so fast or slow as to not have slider ticks appear at all. Yeah. So that's kind of what all this I have to say about the tool. There's probably a bunch of other interesting ways in which you can use it. Again, some ways would be like just artificially extending sliders or getting an exact fraction of a path or something of a circle or a square or whatever. Do you have any questions about that tool? No. Okay. We can move on to slider merger. So slider merger is also kind of basic, but really powerful tool. I use it basically constantly. Yeah, okay. So let's start off with the thing at the top, which is actually, no. Let's start with the selection mode. Similar to a few other tools we saw earlier, like Completionator, which objects get merged depend on this dropdown. So it can be all objects that I have selected in the editor, some objects defined by bookmarks, something with timestamps. I think I can even do this thing like where, so I go to random difficulty, I have these objects specifically all selected. Then if I run the tool, you should always have, I think under file, open current bitmap open. So if I apply it, yeah, that works. Okay. So it can have these numbers in here as well. And then obviously there's everything, which is I have to show that. Very important. So I have this map open right now. You can only see what happens in a second. Oh. I'm running the tool. It merged 533 sliders. That must be good, right? So let's open those and those stream. So this is what the map looks like. Kind of interesting, right? Anyway, so you will probably not ever need to use everything unless you have a difficulty that's specifically made for this. This is Gunga Unbreakable. Yeah, this is just really funny. So let's go back to mapping tools. Rip. Okay. Let me close something. Yeah. So most of the time selected I feel like is the most useful in conjunction with the quick run hotkey to multiple. So if you have multiple objects selected, it automatically has slider merger. It applies slider merger. That's really useful. So there are these two modes, linear and move. I think I've showed them in another thing, in another lecture, how they kind of work. But again, I'll give an example. So let's change stream again. Here we have two objects. So if I have the linear option selected, I'm gonna move these over, copy here over as well. If I now merge them, select them both, and then run the option, it now merged them together by creating a straight path between the slider end of the last one and the slider head of the next one. Same goes for if I make a slider like this. And then let's say I put down a circle here. They can even be overlapping like this, I think. They just need to be in the right order, sort of in the timeline. So obviously this one needs to be the second one. If I put it here, it will start merging from here. So say I put this one here and put this one here or something, blah blah. If I now merge them together, it connects them only with straight lines between everything. So it can't do any curves or something. That already looks kind of like a fancy slider shape, right? Kind of cute. Now, if I make two sliders like this, and I select the move option, what will happen is that it moved this slider over here to the slider end of the previous one. Now, in this case, it doesn't appear very useful, but it is most useful for, like, let's say you make a shape like this, and you want to have basically just another line here. You just want to merge these objects together, and they are perfectly like overlapping as you want them to. If I have... Oh, hello. You just scared me. What the fuck? Welcome.
Hi. Are you still doing the lecture recording?
Yes. You are being recorded right now, sir.
Nice. I'm also going to invite someone else because they want to learn how to use mapping tools.
Okay. We already like went over a majority of the tools, but that's fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can invite them nonetheless.
I'm gonna clap cut recording here.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, it didn't record my clap. Nice. Was too quiet. Anyway, let's go. Who do you want to invite?
Rox or Rotto. We've literally just
Ah.
been in a call for like the past 4 hours, like crunching out this Tycho contest entry.
Nice.
And then I mentioned that you was doing a mapping tools lecture, and then he was like, he wants to learn how to use mapping tools.
Yeah, maybe you can repeat some things, like the most useful tools. Yeah.
Yeah. Why are
Should
you
we...
on my? Is this my map?
Yeah, we did something interesting. I showed, where is it? This is your map, right? Now, here's your map, but oh, it didn't do it. Basically, this was your map, just like Control C, Control V at a different circle size.
Yeah.
And
Hi, Rox.
this is... Hi, welcome. Oh, basically, we copied your map in here into a different CS with pattern gallery at a different circle size. And it like... Actually, I'll just do it again.
Wait, what did it do? Wow, that's gonna be funky. Did it like scale everything up?
I'll show it. So... Oh, actually, I still have it saved. So I just need to go to the first object. Okay, so just for you rocks to understand what the fuck is going on. So this is a map by Jordan. It's CS10, and every object is like in this area in the middle or whatever. So I'll quickly change a stream to mapping tools. I don't know if you even saw the map, but that's fine. So in mapping tools, there's this tool called pattern gallery, which is used for saving patterns or singular objects or entire maps, and then being able to paste them into either the same map or a different map or whatever. Now, what I did is I Control-8 this entire map from Jordan, and I saved it in here. As you can see, it's 540 objects, blah, 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 blah. Now, there's this option called Scale to New Circle Size. So I made basically a div with nothing in it, but I set the circle size to be like 6.4 or something, as opposed to Jordan's CS10. If I now run the tool, oh, I run the wrong div. I run it again. Okay.
Opens Genshin.
So, open different stream. Your map, Jordan. So if I now press Control L, it just copied the entire map over with all the spacing correct.
I wonder how
all the
much...
spacing scaled.
Wow, this would really exaggerate rounding errors, right? Because there's a lot of rounding errors at CS10.
I wonder.
Oh, this map's cool.
I just made your CS10 map into a boring map.
It's still pretty cool though. What does it do if there's not enough
Oh.
room for it to scale.
It just puts it off screen. So, like, let's say I just delete it again. Let's make it CS2 and run the tool.
Oh.
You know, perfectly functional map. I wonder what happens if I reload it again. Is it just gonna
Well, like,
stay?
if anything's to the right or to the bottom off screen, it doesn't get snapped to the grid. Do you know, like when you save and stuff's off screen, it will like automatically move.
Yeah. Oh, does it
to the
only
grid.
on here?
On the right and is it on the right and down below? I think, or is it just down below where it will actually stay off screen?
I think below it was say off screen. That's funny. Anyway, so that's one interesting use. That's what we did with your map. That's one interesting use.
Oh yeah, Rods. The pattern gallery allows you to like save patterns that you see in maps like sliders, and then it will like adjust the spacing depending on the circle size of your map, so it like has the same visual spacing.
Yeah, another useful way I use it for is like it has a manualify stack option. So I tend to like mapping with stack leniency 0 and having all my stacks just manually placed. So what I once did was just I opened the map with stack leniency set to something. I took this and then I put it into pattern gallery, and now I can just automatically put manualified stacks into all of my maps whenever I want. So let's just put one in. So this is now a stack. Basically almost looks the same as the one from earlier with the circle size scale as well, and now I can just flip it however I like.
The one thing I don't like about doing this is it's not the same as a normal stack.
Yeah,
It's
sure
kind of
isn't.
funny because we were talking about before. I was saying in laser it would be cool if they could like fix rounding errors to allow like so rounding errors weren't an issue where you could pretty much like save fractional coordinates. I guess would be the solution.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Um,
I couldn't even show how I actually can flip the stack because it just made a normal stack out of it. What? Oh,
how?
wait, I have to enable manualify. My bad. Uh, okay. See, stack. Woo, flipped stack. Incredible. Yeah. So that's a useful thing for that. Um, Otherwise, I personally mostly use. I'm still figuring out how I personally want to use pattern gallery. A lot of it is currently just like some reoccurring sliders in a lot of maps. I have like a lot of sliders by particular mappers with really particular styles saved, like 0pp or pink card or something. Um, yeah, another thing I occasionally use this for is I have this one slider that's just this big circle. And then with another tool, I use it to like make sliders that are perfectly a quarter of a circle or half a circle or a third of a circle or something. I already explained that to last curve, but basically there's this tool called Slider Completionator where you can take any slider and then there are three variables. There's the velocity of the slider, the length, so how long the shape is, and then the duration for how long the shape lasts. And you can basically one of them gets automatically changed depending on what values you type into the others. So for example, I could make this slider, let's say I wanted to be exactly 1 beat long or something, and then the tool could just say, oh, for it to be that beat long and to be the same shape, the SV gets quadrupled or something. Or I could change the SV of the shape from 1x to 2x by making the path shorter or something. Stuff like that. So one useful thing to do with that is I can, what's it? basically with either duration or velocity as a free variable, I can just instead type in a different length, and then apply it to this one, and now, wow, it's a quarter of a circle. Exactly a quarter of a circle. And even if I scale it, it still stays a quarter of a circle, just different sizes of circles.
Yeah. The only reason to do this really would be like to either, if you do want a quarter of a circle exactly for like if you want to do some like geometry mapping. It's basically just geometry mapping stuff.
Yeah, or just, I don't know. I mean, we could approximate what a quarter of a circle looks like, but I feel like that's a bit, it might be a bit hard if I make, or I don't know exactly what that looks like in my head, so I would just use this.
Oh, Laskov had an interesting comment. With the manualify stacks, you can make hard rock maps look like no mod.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could like manualify stacks and then vertically flip it. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you
Pishyfat
could
wanted
do
to do
that.
that for
It might
Aspire.
just makes honestly, it might just make sense in mapping in general once you complete a map to manualify stacks. Because the issue with hard rock is when you flip hard rock,
Yeah.
but but then the stacking leniency might still have stacks even with AR 10 or whatever AR it is. It can mess up the spacing of stuff. So if you like manualify stacks, it would like actually make that not an issue in hard rock.
Yeah, exactly. You could just, like I did with your map, basically, you select the entire map and just import it into pattern gallery. Then you Control A and reapply it, or delete everything and reapply it with manualify stack on. And then with hard rock, it's just gonna be correct or not bugged. Then you won't have like me off-screen stack streams at hard rock.
Yeah.
Wait, which window do I have open right now? Pattern mapping tools, right? So with last curve, I was just talking about slider merger. Maybe before that, is there any tool that interests you, particular, Roxo?
Um, the whole thing is kind of like I haven't really had a good look at it or what the different tools do. There's nothing that.
I think I use mapping tools for like probably the most what would I consider the most useful things in mapping tool. Especially for someone who might just be wanting to learn how to use it. Not like using it like super heavy, would be Combo Color Studio, Hit Sound Copier, Hit Sound Preview Helper. I recently learned how to use, which is like really good. I think those are like the three big ones that probably apply to like everyday mapping kind of.
I can right now give a quick rundown of how useful or whatever I think every tool is. So, auto fail detector, really simple tool. Basically, I never use it. You will only use it if you make a Aspire or 2B map, whatever. Combo Color Studio, kind of useful, but I don't use it that often. Basically, if you have your map already done, then you can have all your combo colors nice and do fancy stuff with it. Geometry dashboard is really complicated, and learning it is a bit weird. Might have to do some stuff to like slightly integrate it into your workflow. There's one really useful option where it shows you the border of the playfield. So like it shows you where objects will be off screen. I can show that in a second. Hits on copier, really useful, but basically, I mean, you will only use it if you copy over from a top diff to lower difficulties, or if you are a hit sounder. Hits on preview helper and hits on studio, those are basically only useful if either you don't hit sound while you're mapping, or you're just a hit sounder like me. So I use those very often, but a lot of people probably won't. Map cleaner, that one is relatively useful. I don't use it too often, but you basically just press.
One you were using, Jordan.
I think sometimes maybe.
Yeah, that's I used Map Cleaner on our entry. It will re-snap all objects based on like you can give it certain signatures. Do you know when you use the re-snap objects inside the editor, it will only re-snap it to your current beat snap divisor?
Yeah. You can set one.
So when you Tycho map and you use 1/6 and 1/8 rhythms, it's impossible to actually snap them inside the editor.
Yeah.
So you can set custom devices to snap by.
Yeah, you can even
And then it'll re-snap bookmarks and timing points and everything.
yeah, you can even set it to snap things to. I just realized by hovering over it, you can basically type in any number you want. You could even type in 0.35777537775. I don't know what rhythm that would be, but that would be what it could snap your objects to. So it could type in 1/11th or something, 1/11th rhythms or something, 165 rhythms. I don't know, anything you want and it will snap to it. Maybe more importantly, if you run this tool, it will automatically, it will analyze the entire map and then delete unnecessary green lines. So green lines which basically don't change the velocity or volume or whatever of anything.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah,
That's the reason why I put a spinner through the whole map, to avoid it deleting stuff.
Not just for the fun of it.
yeah, because there's this there's these options there. It will basically by default also delete every green line that's within a slider body or spinner, unless you change these three options here. You can enable them. I mean, unless you actually have slider volume changes within sliders or spinners, I would always leave them off, because it can happen that when you copy over hit sounding from a top diff to a lower diff, that you basically get a bunch of green lines that are just unnecessarily on slider slider paths or spinners. So it will automatically remove them. Now for Taiko, the use obviously is if I enable this one, it will, I guess, delete all the green lines that are. What? How does it work, Jordan? Basically, if I put that on, it will not delete certain green lines, right?
Exactly, yeah. I'm fairly sure it
Or
won't
snap
delete
them.
any. I'm fairly sure it won't delete any green lines which are drawing a spinner. I think it does. I think when it says volume changes, it doesn't just delete. If you have two green lines of the same volume within a spinner, I think it will actually keep them both. If you select that.
But it will still apply all the other things like resnap objects.
Yeah,
That's it,
will.
right. You're just concerned with leaving the green lines. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. Because obviously it can resnap bookmarks, objects. It can when you're using one of the other hit sound preview helper or studio to hit sound and export something, the what sample set indexes and stuff are used are not perfect. So sometimes this button at the top, this checkbox, the analyze samples, what it will basically do is it will check through the map if there are any unnecessary ways in which samples are used, like duplicate samples for no reason or something. Just anything to reduce the file size of the map, basically. Then it can remove all hit sounds, it can remove muting, it can mute all the unclickable objects, which I wouldn't recommend ever using that, but for some mapping styles that might be useful. Yeah. Map set merger. Oh, I think we basically skipped that one last curve. The funny thing is, I have no idea how this one works. This seems pretty stupid to me. It just puts all the maps into a folder, but it doesn't resolve any. It doesn't change the map set creator or something. It just puts them all in a folder.
It doesn't resolve hit sound conflicts and stuff.
Yeah.
Either.
Oh, by the way, something that I showed earlier is there's this now new option in Metadata Manager where basically I basically can steal Kazak's map if I wanted to, because it has the reset beatmap set ID button. So this would be how you solve the speed map is not yours issue when trying to upload. You can just click this. You can just insert your name in here now and click this button.
Oh, does that definitely work though? Because the thing with the client is if you try to edit the .osu, and then the client can like revert bitmap set IDs and stuff.
Yeah,
That's
I have
like
no
a problem because if you try to manually change a bitmap set ID, save the map, and then try to reload it and upload it, it can revert back to the old bitmap set ID. I think it depends on the name of the folder that the song's in, or something like that.
Yeah, I
Like the
haven't
name of the
actually
bitmap folder.
tested it, but I think it might actually bypass that issue. I just haven't
Oh,
tested it
okay.
yet.
Cool.
Maybe if you want, you can test it later. Where were we? Oh yeah, map set merger, basically useless. I have no idea how this tool works. Seems I don't get it. Metadata manager is really useful because basically you can, like, let's say you're mapping a Harumachi clover. You just go to ranked Harumachi clover and take import the metadata from it, and it will instantly put everything in. Wait a second. We open a random map. Whatever. So you can copy metadata from one map set to another map set. Then more importantly, if you were changing the metadata of one single difficulty in a spread, it will obviously not change any of the metadata for any of the other diffs. So what you can do is kind of like, I can select this singular difficulty to copy the metadata from it, then copy from that one to multiple diffs at once. So that's how you, like, let's say you have a set or whatever. If you wanted to change the tags of the different difficulties, before this tool, you would have to go into the normal diff, copy paste the tags in, into the easy diff, copy paste the tags in, into the hard diff, blah blah. With this one, you can just paste it all at once, and you don't have
That's really
to.
useful.
Yeah, that's really useful. There's this like color button where, and you can also the preview point can set exactly at which offset it is for all the same diffs. So it can sometimes also happen that, say you change the preview point in the top diff, it will then be on all the other diffs, it will still be wrong. So that one can be copied as well. Same with combo colors. Usually I would leave combo colors off because it can create some issues, but if you change combo colors on one diff for some reason, you can then copy it onto all the other ones. So that's a really useful tool. I don't use it too often, unless I'm changing tags or something, but it's pretty neat. Pattern gallery I'm starting to use more and more, but honestly it's not as useful. Because there aren't that many cases where you like literally want to put a different pattern from a different map into yours. Actually, unless you have like the kind of mapping style where that makes sense. Like, say there are just certain shapes that you keep redrawing in the exact same way. Instead of redrawing it in the exact same way, just save it and then copy paste it back into your map again. I mean, good example would be if you use wave sliders or something. Don't keep making the same wave slider, just click a button here and then it's done. Then maybe scale it. Property transformer is a calculator. I've never used this tool, but I feel like it might be. It's possible that you might have some use for it.
This is the tool I mentioned before, where you can like multiply all of the SVs in your map by a certain amount.
Have you ever
change, like base slider velocity?
Have you ever used this for Taiko mapping, Jordan?
Yes.
So is it like relatively useful for Taiko?
Not really. It's good if you want to like nerf a map. The problem with Taiko is when you do SVs and stuff, if you then like reduce all if you then like use the normal Taiko tool where it's like -2, literally like -0.2 on every single SV, you can kind of ruin some Taiko effects. But if you apply a multiplier, it will like maintain the same. It makes it more consistent if you want to like nerf a map's SVs.
You could even do the whitelist blacklist thing. I feel like it's to somehow solve what you're talking about. Like you're just moving certain green lines by one or two, not others. But yeah, I personally I've never found that much of a use for it. It is kind of almost like just a calculator that can automatically apply certain
used
useless
this-
changes.
I used this in the credits GD as well, actually, if you remember.
Yeah, I think
Because it's like a grid map. I changed the base slider velocity to 1. So then I could use 1x distance snap and it would be the same length as sliders. And then basically used this to change all of the green lines to match up.
Yeah, so personally not that useful for me, but might be useful. Rhythm Guide is a tool that's basically literally just included in HitSum Preview Helper. There's like this button down here that literally just opens up Rhythm Guide. It's used for, say you hit sounding a map that already exists, and you in HitSum Preview Helper you hit sounding basically with a mania diff, so you can kind of like copy all the rhythms from the finished map into the mania diff, and then while you hit something, you can actually see what rhythms the map has actually mapped and which it hasn't mapped, if there's any over mapping and stuff. Just useful to for hit sounding. Nothing else really. Slider Completeator. I use that one relatively often. It's not too often, but it's kind of nice. Like, you could just take a slider if it's a free 4-beat slider and just make it into a half-beat slider by making it faster as V. And then exactly it just calculates the numbers for you. You don't have to calculate them yourself or something. Or you can make a slider half as long, make it shorter. Take a big slider and make a small one out of it or something. Like take only a small fraction of it, blah blah.
So
Stuff like
if you
that.
have like a complex slider with a lot of nodes, and then you want one which like perfectly overlaps the slider body, that could be quite hard to do by manually dragging stuff because, yeah, this would be a good example.
So
then like deleting anchors and then moving the anchors so it still perfectly overlaps would be too hard. So this will actually like make it like mathematically perfect.
see. So let's see. I wanted. Let's Control G it, and I apply the tool. Ignore the stacking, but I think it's not exactly perfect, or might have been changed because of some stuff.
Maybe the Control G changed it.
Could be. Give me a sec.
So yeah.
I mean, it is also kind of useful in this way that like you can take this fraction of this shape, and then like it is now already visually related in some way to this shape, because it is literally a fraction of this path. And could use that to do stuff like that, or whatever. Nice fancy pattern where these paths are like related to part of the path of this one. Yeah. Would I recommend experimenting around with that one? Because like, or at least with the length thing. Another really common useful case for that one is, let's say you have what is the song? Whoop, rip. Take this song. It has a bunch of red lines everywhere. What you can do basically, or if you have a slider like this where the slider ends have to be snapped to the next timing section. So as you can see, the slider end here is snapped to this red line. The way that I did that is basically with Slider Completeator. So I just took a slider, and obviously if I just put it down like this, it's going to be unsnapped after the red line. So this is wrong. It's not supposed to be like that. What I can now do is I can Control C on the red line, and then use Slider Completeator. Oh, yeah. Now, see, it automatically perfectly scaled the slider, so the slider end is exactly where I wanted it to be.
Meanwhile, when I did this, I just trial and errored a bunch of SVs.
Did that make sense? I mean, I can show you what exactly I put into mapping tools, but did that make sense in principle?
Yeah.
I think I think with that one I changed the length of the slider, but it can also work with SV. So like it could make the slider exactly so fast that with the same shape, the slider end will be exactly where I want it to be.
Yeah.
If I open mapping tools, basically there's this checkbox that's use slider end time. You have to check that one, and then you can put timestamps into here, exactly where you want the slider end to be. If it's not checked, then it will basically be how many beats. So if I tap on a 5 here and I apply to some slider, the slider will be 5 beats long. Can make it 3.5 beats long, 0.4 beats long, or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, or just -1, which will just, I think, stay the same. It will basically not change the. If there's -1 in anything, it will not change anything about the slider. It will just stay the same. Same with velocity, or I think with length, it's actually 1 instead of -1, but whatever. There are also these options to like, some changes might be impossible with like green lines because it goes over 10x slider velocity or under 0.01 slider velocity. In that case, you can instead make it so that it will just change the BPM to make it fit. That's obviously unrankable, but you can basically then do whatever you want. And you can remove the slider ticks. It will make the BPM so fast that the slider ticks will just be gone.
Mhm.
I wonder if there's any use for that in Taiko. We'll probably just fuck the map up in Taiko. I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah, slider merger is really useful. I use slider merger all the time personally. I think a lot of people don't, but I just like slider merging. Slider rater is really useful if you're making streams that are changing in spacing over time. Yeah, that's basically the most useful thing about it.
Incorrect.
What?
Incorrect.
Was
I thought
incorrect.
there's do you know the have you seen the Ollie Bombay tool for
Yeah, yeah, I have.
streams? I was like explaining before how even though the acceleration might be calculated mathematically, it can still look really bad.
Someone has already mentioned that to Oli Bombi in their server.
Oh really?
They have like had a discussion about which type of I forgot about it. Basically they talked about whether it's like supposed to be cubic or something else. Logarithmic, blah blah blah, stuff like that. Basically what kind of algorithm it should have by default. Yeah.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah. So there
Well,
was
even so, I wonder if Ollie Bombay, do you know the AI mapping tool?
yeah.
Ollie Bombay has apparently implemented knowledge of visual spacing.
And it fucked everything up.
Did it actually?
For some maps it fucked everything up.
But I'm
Specifically
wondering is
stream
if
maps.
the reason why some streams can look, accelerated streams can look kind of scuffed is because they're not taking visual spacing into account. Maybe like Alibambi could make some visual spacing calculation inside of accelerating streams so that it could like slightly nudge stuff to look better.
Yeah, I see. I think this tool is kind of useful for Lasker for accelerating and deaccelerating streams because basically you just don't have to put the nodes down each one by one.
I feel the opposite in having an intuition of manually placing them is best.
I see. Understandable. I just like to go fast. I'm just kidding. I don't use slider merger sliderator beyond that. Basically, at all. I mean, doing the actual sliders that change velocity mid slider, that kind of stuff, that's unrankable now completely. So it's basically only useful for sliders streams.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
I've never used timing copier, but I mean, it's kind of obvious what it would be useful for, right? You copy the timing of one map to another map. Yeah. And then there's tumor generator, which is I can explain in a second. I just wanted to go more in detail over slider merger because that's kind of where I left off with last curve. So, kind of what was explained earlier, there's like this drop down which, depending on which option you have selected, it will determine which sliders get merged. So, selected will be all the sliders that you have selected. Bookmarks will be, you can put down a bunch of bookmarks and then every object that appears on a bookmark will get merged together. Then there's a timestamp where you can just put in timestamp. Can even do it with like one like this with like numbers in it and stuff of the objects, I think. I tested it out, but I don't know if it can be like if you can skip over objects in time, but I'm pretty sure you can. And then there's everything where you can merge every object in the entire map together for no reason. Yeah, that looks really stupid, by the way, but you can do that if you want to. You can make a maze slider. So I find that tool really useful. I can quickly change, and then there's this mode that's these two modes that's either linear or move. I can quickly open up O's and show what those do. So whatever. Yeah, let's just do this one, sure. So let's say I have a slider like this, and then I put a slider like this over here. I've set the mode to linear. What linear will do is basically if I have like a hotkey set for running the tool. So if I press that one, it now just generated a straight path from the slider end of the first to the slider head of the second. Same goes if I make a curved slider like this one, or if I put like a circle over here, I put a circle over here, then I put another curved slider like this over here or something. If I now merge all of them together, it just creates straight paths between them, and it made the curved sliders into Bezier sliders like this.
Well, it's a music note. Pay attention.
No, but that's funny. I mean, obviously, there's some. I guess it's kind of obvious how that tool can be used. So that was the linear mode. The other mode is move. What move basically does is, let's say I take these sliders again, just perfectly copy paste it, or like, let's rotate this one. That it's more obvious. So I will now change the connection mode to move, and if I now press the key, instead of creating this perfect line between them, it took the one slider shape and it just moved it to the slider end of the other one to create this kind of shape or whatever. Now that might not seem as intuitive or whatever at first sight, the way I did it, because it's kind of like I just made a right angle slider. What it's kind of useful for is if you are making shapes and you are doing it basically by already like planning it out like this. So like say you're overlapping them perfectly with the slider ends. If I now use the linear mode, it will create these like tiny little lines where the slider end and the slider head have like these tiny rounding error differences, which is kind of unnecessary. Instead, if I just take them like this, and I select the move mode instead of the linear mode, now it's perfectly fine. Where instead of just creating this tiny little line, it just moved the sliders a little bit so they perfectly overlap. Does that make sense? Hello? Does that make sense to you, Jordan?
Yes, it does. Although, what I would like to say about this is if you are going to be merging and planning shapes out like this, I would honestly just recommend always using the move mode. And if you want to connect sliders up with a linear path, then manually draw that slider so you can visualize how it will look before you run the tool.
Kinda. I think there are some ways in which there are some scenarios in which you can't as feasibly do that, or where it just kind of makes sense to just use the linear mode and then forget about it or whatever. Like say I take these sliders or whatever, can do something kind of funny. Wait, fuck. Need to do it a little bit differently. Okay. I make a stream out of this one. I should have defined like a 30. Maybe a bit too much, but whatever. Then I got this one, 30. Not sure if that will be actually correct, but whatever. Now let's take all these objects and I create a slider like this. Would be kind of unnecessary to do all the connecting bits, or it would at least take a long time. Well, this is kind of just like you should
Really cool.
just do it. Yeah, that's how like some sliders in like Scap Domino maps are made. Or I mean, in general, the idea that you can just merge together circles can be used in interesting ways, like this one, like where you can just like create streams or something. Let's maybe even say I make a red anchor slider here.
This is like how people made these sliders. They probably do just use Tumor Generator V2 now, but
Actually, no, because like there are certain shapes that are just like when you make it with the circles, it's way more elegant than if you do it with Tumor Generator. Because with Tumor Generator, there are like there are some things where if you would want to recreate it in that kind of way, you would have to input either hyper-specific values that you can't possibly know, or you have to get lucky or something. Basically, for example, the thing I did earlier, where I just had those exact like 60 nodes or something. You can't really get exactly that in Tumor Generator. It will either create too many nodes or it will have like information in between. I can't really explain it. It's weird.
I can see the use case for using the circles, but for stuff like that, you could just you can like draw a graph. You can draw graphs inside of Tumor Generator, and you can just do a sine wave. But true, if you wanted to do like red anchor stuff like what you're doing now.
Well, even then there are just some these kind of shapes that particularly the one from earlier. You can kind of get something that kind of looks like it in Tumor Generator, but it's just not as good. Honestly, I've tried it out. It's kind of weird. I can maybe even show how it doesn't work out exactly. Wait. Also, now I do want to try out how that looks like. Wow, that looks like garbage. That's fine. And obviously, could also do things like create polygons and then merge them together or something like that. I don't know what that will look like, but wow, incredible slider shape. Basically, I mean, I don't use it like that, but there's a bunch of different ways you can use this slider merging tool. It is really useful. You can even do stuff like, say, you put down some kind of shape, looks like this or whatever. Maybe not like that. Just some kind of shape, and it's kind of complex. Can even do things like make it like symmetrical on an axis. That's a fancy shape. Looks kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
So if I go back to mapping tools with the stream, there's one more option, which is the use linear, or there's two more options. There's the use linear curve type on fully merge, linear merge. Basically, you might have noticed earlier that when I merged certain sliders together with only linear or red anchor stuff, it created those gray anchors, even though it was sliders where there were no curves in it or whatever. That's basically like an old curve type from an older editor that was like removed. I don't quite know the exact use of that, of actually using that curve type. It can fuck some stuff up with mapping tools, with tumor generator, which is a bit weird. So I guess if you really want to be sure, maybe just leave that one off. I don't know what the advantage of that option is. For some reason I just keep it on because I feel like it's funny. But yeah, maybe just keep it off. It doesn't really change much. Merge on slider end is, it can happen that when you make a slider, that the slider end anchor is not exactly where the slider end is. So I would basically and if you don't check this, it will merge where that slider end is that you don't expect. So I would usually recommend just keeping this on.
Okay, I want to test everyone's knowledge on sliders right now. Who can name the 4 types of sliders that the editor uses?
The old editor.
Well, the stable uses them. 4 types of sliders.
Kind of true, yeah.
Oh god.
The curve types. There are also in laser if you want to cheat.
Whoever knows all 4 gets the imaginary bonus points. So one of the types is Bezier.
I can show on stream. So
Oh.
It's basically how the editor calculates what a slider looks like based off its anchors. There's 4 ways it can calculate it.
see the difference between how this one acts versus this one. Those are 2 different curve type or types of sliders. And this one, as Jordan said, is Bezier.
Did we cover this in the first lecture on the editor basics? If not, we should have.
I don't know. I'll now create a fancy shape. Look at this. Wait, fuck, that's not fancy.
Are you trying to make tempo limit sliders?
Actually, no, I just wanted to do something like... Wait, I know what to do. For that, I need to do... Fuck. Okay. Fuck. I can't do it. It's too hard. Okay, now I will be able to do it. Incredible.
I thought you was gonna do some like overflow slider.
I mean, that's kind of overflow, kinda. Oh, I had...
Anyway, I'll answer my own question. Wait, no, Sally, you have to answer it.
Okay, there's 3-point slider. This is a 3-point slider. There's linear. There's red anchor. There is Bezier, which is this basically. And then there's like cat mole. Did I already
Yeah.
mention 4? I think I might have mentioned too many.
Yeah, you mentioned red anchor and linear are the same.
Well, this is a linear curve type, right? It's a
Yeah,
different
the
one.
linear curve type. Technically, a red anchor slider is calculated through Buray, not Buray, Bezier.
Interesting.
Actually, let me do something right now. Let me get let me start streaming. I'll show everyone.
Damn, that stream is not gonna be in the recording. Rip. Instead, you will have to cut out my huge break where my mic broke.
It is good to know these types of sliders because they do have like use cases.
Yeah, or like they affect how stuff works.
And you can use them in interesting ways.
True. Right, are you gonna stream or no?
Yeah, I'm just gonna like set it up though. Because I actually have to edit the .osu to get some of them.
After that, I should challenge you to recreate that one slider I made earlier with the streams in mapping to Joomla generator. And then you can explain how that tool works.
I barely know how to use Humor Generator though.
I mean, it's not that complex. Actually, it's more like you just have to get experience using it, I feel like.
Yeah,
Which you don't
true.
have.
No.
But I don't either.
No.
I don't use it that much.
I mean, tumors are kind of overrated anyway.
Damn.
So, yeah, these are the 4 types. Is the first type is normal Bezier, which you just how like a normal slider would look if you placed it in the editor. This next slider has the exact same nodes, right? But it's linear type, so the gray anchors actually act like red anchors. Exact same nodes. The third type, Catmull, the same nodes, but you can edit a line in the code, which is like a letter in the hit object. By default, it's set to B, but you can change it to C, and you get this like old. If you add points, it might mess it up. You get like the old curve calculation, and then the fourth type is just a normal 3-point. So yeah, these 3 sliders all use the same nodes, but are calculated like entirely differently. It's like a good thing to know to get like certain if you want a certain kind of shape.
And Catmull is clearly the best one because it looks the most ugly.
Catmull is. I've only ever used Catmull once in a map, but it fit really well. Because you can do some interesting, like almost like old style shapes with Catmull.
You can do epic
Like-
wave sliders. Epic ugly wave sliders.
No, nobody got the bonus points. I got the bonus points.
You just self-congratulated yourself. You did like one meme where Obama gives himself a medal.
True.
Okay, was that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Wait, do you wanna try and do the tumor generator thing? Try making that shape. At least for a few
Okay.
minutes. And then you can kind of show how the tool works.
I'll stream. Let me stream up in Sulzan.
Yeah. Also, I am recording just the Discord screen of your thing now.
Yeah.
with the chat.
Okay, you're really gonna make me figure this out right now.
Yeah.
Let me just delete this. Wait, so
You want a
we need to-
reference?
I
Or
need to put a slider in it. I'll use this.
oh, that might be hard.
Yeah,
But
I
it
think
could
it needs
work
to be
maybe.
less. I'll do a less curved.
Just slightly, a short, slightly curved slider.
So, open current beat map.
Reminder
And
that
then-
anything you make in Tumor Generator, basically, you need some kind of shape, and then you apply the basically like layers to the shape of, and the layers add like these little generators of like stuff around the shape, and you can then basically whatever Jordan is going to do right now, you could take that and apply it to different sliders, and you
Yeah,
could then
so you can-
also say whatever you do, you could save it as like a preset. Like you could make a preset that's just like a single tumor in the middle of the slider path, and then you can save that in mapping tools and apply it to sliders in the future. What do you want to
Yeah,
say?
so one use for that, I may as well show it. I should have shown your map actually.
I don't know. The
I'm not sure. I
right
was
of
just gonna show
ascendancy.
this. Where I used it in this map, where I applied it throughout different slider shapes. So then it's like, even though I'm using different shapes, the way that the tumors are generated is consistent.
Can you go to this section where I have them?
Which section do you have them? I forgot.
It's like after that really, really tiny break. And 2/3 in. No, a bit back. A bit forward.
Oh, what else? Yeah, I know which one. You should have just said the 300 BPM part.
I don't have them anywhere else. So this is also basically just those are all basic shapes, but with a preset with really thick tumors applied. Could almost see how it's just like these. I took some sliders that are tilted by like 10 degrees, and I merged them together to get shapes like that, and then I applied the tumor generator to it.
So even though the shapes look really consistent because they have the same like tumor generation.
They don't all have the same preset.
Almost the same.
Yeah, kind of.
Very similar. Like these first two have the same.
They have the same. And then the latter ones, I had to use a different one because it can something around the edges looked ugly, so I had to use a different wrapping mode.
Yeah, I'll try and make the slider then. That's perfectly timed with the song. That was unintentional. So it's the similar options as slider merger, right? Where you have an option to select by time, selected, bookmarked, and everything. I'm just gonna put the time. So it needs like a base slider to calculate stuff off of. So you like import the slider. It's just this simple curve. And then what we'd want to do here then is we'd want to do
Probably triangle preset. I feel like. So there are these different under template. There are these different kinds of tumors. Basically, it's if you think about the sliders with little tumors, it's either going to be a triangular one, a square one, a round one, or like a parabola shaped one. And then with scale length and angle, you can like decide, say how high is the triangle bump, how wide is it, what's the angle of it. If the length is set to 0, it will just be a straight line, kind of. And then with distance or count, you can determine how many tumors there are going to be in a slider.
Yeah, so what you can do with this as well is you can do this. Have a graph.
This is only
Um,
available if you click the advanced
oh yes,
check.
the advanced down here. And you can have it like change how it's calculating. So advanced, this is like a
Yeah, so it's how what the setting is. It changes over the duration of the shape.
where is the where's full sign?
I think that might not be one. You might be thinking of FL Studio.
Why is this not one though? This should definitely be.
Maybe
Do you have to do it like
Wave?
this?
Maybe it's Wave.
No, it's not wave. But like this, okay. Why did that not work?
Maybe you need to set the scale. I think sometimes you need to set the default value to something for it to like effectively change anything. So before you draw the graph, set the scale already to something. Like your maximum scale or whatever.
Oh, right. So it's like a multiplier, basically. This is a multiplier, not actually.
I'm not sure. I think I might just offset the graph.
There, croissant slider. I've done it already. I recreated the slider, which was apparently impossible.
Well, the anchors are all different. You have a bunch of extra anchors.
That's just for visual effects.
Oh, you also are kind of running into another issue, which is you only have it at the top, but not at the bottom. But for that, you would have to change the sidedness. There's a drop down called sidedness. But right now, basically, all the tumors are only on one side of the slider, like only on the right side, only on the left side, and then there's these options that are alternating left or right, or random. And with random, you can like type in a seed.
There, that looks cooler than yours.
It's almost it.
Almost.
Yeah. I think something I was actually thinking of is there's like one shape I couldn't do is one where it like changed the angle over time or something. I think that gets really complicated because doing it with the angle thing is hard.
We could do. Can you change the absolute angle?
Yeah.
Like this. But you need to turn it up first.
So John changed under wrapping mode. There are different modes for like how there's 3 different ones, but the most important thing is just like if you have a corner or a curve, it decides how the tumors are wrapping around a corner. Like how they are changing, if the tumors are changing their angle around a corner, and then the absolute mode is just that all the tumors are like they're not following
They'll be all at the same angle, regardless of the angle of the slider body.
Yeah, if it's set to simple, it's like taking into account the curve of the slider shape, and then it changes the angle of every single tumor to be the same as the curve. So the difference between simple and the wrapping mode is kind of small. It only changes around like corners, but then between absolute and the other two, there's a big difference, as you might be able to see.
It's just very hypnotic.
Yeah.
Yeah, the absolute is.
If you
has like very interesting visuals.
Yeah, if you set the scale really high, it becomes more noticeable how it works. Like you can see all the lines are at the same angle. 3D animation. Now, if you set it to simple again, the wrap mode.
Yeah.
And obviously you can see how they are all different angles and they're like wrapping around the curve. Now, fun fact, it's really easy to make slider shapes like these in 2 Generate, but these are not usable in any way. They're just stupid. Usually you want to keep the settings relatively low, I feel like. Especially scale. Scale is like, you can create some really stupid shit really easily. With length, setting a length really high just gets strange as opposed to yeah.
I'm not even sure what is that actually doing.
It is
You know?
so since our tumor is a triangle, basically, if you imagine, can you increase the distance and then reduce length? Yeah, put length to like 0 and then change distance. Put count to all the way down. Okay. Okay, that's good. So now we can change length a little bit and then you see what it does.
Ah, okay.
Basically, it makes it an actual triangle as opposed to just this tiny little straight angle thing. Now, and then when you put it obviously really high, it makes
The triangles start to overlap.
the triangles are like, and then they get really fucked up. This is just really weird. So putting scale really high makes your slider shape unnecessarily super large, and putting length super high almost creates like a really super complex interaction between the tumors. Usually you just want to have those options relatively low, unless you want to make, I guess, like a big slider art thing.
That's some noise right there.
Yeah. So scale, length, and distance are kind of the most important options in the tool. Most things you'd want to do in this tool can be done with only those 3 options. The wrapping modes, angle, and then start and end or whatever, those are kind of extra. Well, yeah, if you know how to use those, then that's good. But
Probably, I think the most common use case for this is just either making like a noisy slider or
Yeah.
something that's like pretty basic with
Yeah.
like super low values.
Can you go to Seinsorf? That one map where I made the tumors basically like
Yeah.
fancy looking slider art thingies. If you convert it to a stream, then it's just a really fucked up stream, I think. So it's just the first few sliders. So something you can do with these are tumors, those big circles. I just made like a square-shaped slider, and then I made or like a circular slider, and made the tumors relatively big, and tried to get them just right so they like at this. So you can make shapes like these that aren't just noise. Obviously, I have some sliders in this map that also look like noise, but you can make some slider art as well.
Yeah,
If
there's
you
like another example.
yeah, that's a good one. Epic loading.
Like this.
I think in Moag I have one as well like these. Not exactly like that, but yeah, those are really cool things you can do with that tool that aren't just wow, my slider has so many anchor spammed around.
Lastly, if you convert something like this to a stream, it would just kind of like look how you expect. I guess that's kind of a cool use.
Make
for
the distance really low. That's an epic stream.
That's a pretty cool stream.
But I think you meant like if it's like a really one of those you had earlier where it's like just a really fucked up shape where all the red anchors are bunched together. I mean,
Oh, well, we can do that from one of yours. Do you want to talk about? Yeah, let's talk about the other sliders in this map. Is there any in particular you want to talk about?
I mean, if you go to like the first Ki spam, or I guess those as well, all of the sliders in the map kind of have like the same tumor preset applied to it. I think it's like I think it's triangle. Can you hover over it?
Square.
Might be square. Yeah, and then I think it's absolute angle. I'm not mistaken. Whatever. Basically, all of those shapes. The way I just initially made them is I put just a straight slider from the slider head to the slider end. And I think there was also one option that I enabled. Like I had one layer that was basically just relatively large tumors, but they were the sidedness was randomized, and then on top of that, I applied the square stuff. So the first layer was basically just if I had any straight slider, I could just roll the dice on the randomizer and get a different rough shape, even though all of them still kind of had like the basically a similar gameplay where they all go in a straight line. And then I had the square layer on top that was always the same, making them all look similar. That's like what I thought about when making those. Yeah.
And this is what they actually look like. And
I
then
think
is this
those are
just
just scaled.
increasing the? Is it just actually scaled?
Yeah,
Is it not increasing distance?
those were just scaled with the x-axis or something, with only with one axis. Those were just scaled, but then all the other ones I randomized the preset with the big tumors. So like that blue one, then the not the five, but the next one. The five is like an extra layer on top, but that one, that one and two, those have this. Then that one as well. Those are all just straight sliders, but I randomized the big tumors differently.
Or even
And
though
this,
they look like completely different and they have effectively the same gameplay because they're just like this tumor applied to just a linear slider. Because it's used a randomized tool. It makes them all look similar but like all different as well.
yeah, the extra layer on top with the squares is kind of what makes them at least somewhat look similar, I feel like.
And is this the that's not the same, is it?
Those are all straight sliders.
Oh, okay.
You mean the shape? Those were copy pasted, I think. Yeah, those three in particular. I think with that green one, I might have increased the scale of a little bit, just like a tiny amount. Might have, I don't remember.
And are these two this different but the same? Oh wait, no.
These have an additional triangle layer on top. Basically, there are just some shapes where, like, if the song does something special, I apply the extra triangle layer on top to make them look a little bit different.
Yeah. By the way, Lasker, when you said about converting shapes like this to a stream, it's probably not something that I would recommend because the way slider to stream works, it'll like if you've ever noticed this, this is going to be like even worse on like a really complex shape. But if you have like a slider to stream on a corner, depending on where it calculates the circles to go, it's not always guaranteed that a circle will be placed on this red anchor. Can you see like the position of the circles always changing? So if you use that in a complex shape like this, you kind of have that issue, but to the extreme.
Yeah,
Where,
usually you would almost never want to make a stream out of a complex slider.
yeah,
I
pretty
feel,
much.
yeah.
Unless you was using like an extremely high amount of notes, then maybe you could justify it.
I guess, yeah. What does it look
Yeah.
like on one of those big shapes? Yeah.
I'll do it on this one.
This is stream randomizer. If you have the spacing really high, it's just makes the stream look random.
Yeah, pretty much.
Look, sand place.
So yeah, if you'll get some really inconsistent stream shapes. The higher the number goes, the higher it will like
More accurate it will be.
the more accurate it will be. It's kind of like the I don't know if anyone's aware of this, but like approximating the circumference of a circle. Where the more you divide it, the closer you get to the circumference of a circle, but you'll never actually get there. It's kind of like this.
Very deep.
And like if you approximate the circumference of a circle with the least amount of accuracy possible, you'll have a square. And the more you approximate it, you get closer to a circle, but never exactly a circle. So yeah, never do slider to stream on a complex shape. Unless you wanted to do some like gimmick where you have like a slider and then like a depth stream that's like immediately after it. I think I might have just crashed the game.
Oh,
Okay, yeah, game's crashed.
nice.
Wait, it's not. I think just the edit's crashed.
Oh,
Yeah.
and in tumor generator there's an option to automatically like change the circle size of what map you're exporting to. And again, you can, similar to the slider merger thing, you can apply a tumor preset to an entire map. I've done that as a meme before. I've just made a map and then I applied some tumor preset to the entire map. And then made the circle size really small.
Shall I show that map?
If you want to.
What song was it? Oh, this.
Yeah. Suicide is the map before, and then tumor is after.
This is a after tumor generator. This is before. So you can kind of, if you want to do something like that, you can kind of use basic shapes to plan out the movement, and then apply these tumor generator stuff to kind of have an interesting shape, but you've already like considered the movement with like the base slider. The only issue with doing that is depending on the slider presets, you may actually like unknowingly affect the point at which the slider end's calculated. That's like the only issue I can think of with that.
Yeah. I think it also, just visually speaking, it helps if you, or it can be interesting to start with a really basic shape, maybe even one that's like very obviously recognizably geometric, and then apply the tumor generator to it. So you basically have like the basic shape at the start is like your rough skeleton, and it, even if you put a bunch of apply a bunch of complex shit to it, if it's a triangular shape, that will still be the most recognizable thing about it. Like, it doesn't matter how complex you make the shape with the tumor generator, really. If the rough shape is a triangle, that's what's gonna be the most visually recognizable about it. Because our brains are kind of just like, oh, triangle. I see triangle. At first sight we sort of ignore all the visual complexity. What we first see is just a broad outline of stuff. If that makes sense. So that can be used to make these shapes not look as garbage. It is so funny how this what looks like though. I don't know which tumor preset came before. Because you can see those like almost sine wavy patterns in it, and then those like extra tumors. You can like tell that it's like two layers of tumors, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah. One thing to mention, just because this map kind of brings the issue up. usually at lower circle sizes, tumor generation will look better because if I set this map to like CS4, it makes these like small details within sliders less noticeable.
And it ruins the visual spacing you had before.
Exactly. And when you use this is because these sliders are pretty much full screen, it's kind of not justifying my point I'm trying to make. So let me just scale one down. Wait, that is laggy. When I'm trying to scale down. This has got so many points.
Yeah, I just saw the anchors move, but not the shape. That looks trippy.
Just reopen them up.
I think it's because they have like the red lines that do the stuff. This is so weird.
What's just happened? Anyway, if you have a smaller shape, then you'll get a lot of slider body overlaps and like the details inside the slider aren't as like noticeable. So if you have like a smaller circle size, it allows you to do more complex stuff.
I think you can almost imagine if you just took the shape and you scaled down, you can imagine how it's basically just gonna look like a clump of shit.
Like compare this right now to how it looks like with the original circle size. This isn't even the original circle size, but you can see the point. The only trade-off with that, if you try to do overly complex stuff, is there's a trade-off in gameplay where you've made a map which probably doesn't suit this circle size.
Yeah, this is just trash to play this map.
Yeah,
it's just tiny circles with big shapes.
There is also the issue of when you have small circle size and a thick slider body, kind of makes aiming sliders more difficult. Because a lot of the times when it comes to aiming a slider head, it's kind of obvious where you need to aim, right? You just aim at the end, aim at the start of the shape. But when you have a fixed slider like this, it's not as simple as aiming at the start of the shape, because there's like a lot of noise around the start of the shape.
Yeah, and usually when you're actively playing, you're not as closely probably looking at where you're actually going, I think. Like you're probably aiming at the circles, but in some ways you're also kind of just like, if it's a really simple map, you're just kind of aiming at where the slider, roughly speaking, starts. With this one, it's could almost just accidentally, while it's out of the side of where you're looking right now, you could misclick somewhere else.
Or if the slider head is like within the body and stuff like that as well.
Yeah. It feels really weird.
There are some maps which like do this in a good way. But most of the time, if you don't think about it, this is like so much harder to play than like this in terms of reading. What just happened? Dude, what happened to your slider?
As you can see, sometimes Tuber Generator is not, it's not as intuitive the gameplay. Like, where's the slider head? What
Your
the fuck?
based slider.
You should
That's bio shit right here. What does that look like in testing? Oh, it's just invisible.
No, it disappeared. Slider gone.
Yeah, this is a problem with using a lot of anchors within it. I bet if I opened up AI mod right now, it would crash.
You think so? Please do. I want to see that.
Okay, no, it's just it just says slider has an absurdly large amount of points.
On everything.
on every object, pretty much. Your KI's end isn't snapped, so that's pretty noob. Wait, is it snapped?
No.
Yeah, it's unsnapped end, unrankable map.
Clearly, that's the main issue here.
This looks cool with the triangles filling in the body. That's a pretty cool slider.
Damn, time to pattern gallery it, guys. Add this to your pattern gallery right now, and then at CS4 it's gonna look like trash.
Actually, I think that would look pretty good on small circle size.
It's small.
Big, I mean. Yeah, that looks pretty good.
Looks okay. Probably because already most of it is overlapping.
Yeah. Was that the last tool that you're gonna look at? But
I haven't talked at all about the hit sounding ones and geometry dashboard.
there is actually already a good video on using the hit sounder. That's what I used. Ollie Bomber's video, I think, is probably
Wait, is it the
enough
one?
resources.
Is it the one with the meme music where he doesn't commentate over it, or did he
Yeah.
make a new one?
No, it's that meme one.
I feel like
Um,
at some point I gotta make my own one because
Maybe you
it's just
should.
even
I,
though
I mean, I used that video to learn how to use it in like 5 minutes. So, I mean, it seems good, but
yeah.
maybe you could like remake it.
Let me change something quickly. Which everyone, which things should we go over next? If you want to, if you could decide geometry dashboard or hit sounding stuff. Any preference? Rip 19. Rip. Well, I guess we can, or I can just do geometry dashboard. Can you close your stream? Oh, see ya, Nature.
Yes, I can. I think I'll have to go now as well,
Oh, damn.
with it getting kind
Maybe-
of late.
Maybe we should just continue this another time. I think that would be fine.
Yeah, I feel like going over geometry dashboard will take like an hour and a half.
You think so?
It's
Well,
like it's so intimidating.
is it that bad? I mean, it is very intimidating because there is so much shit. And I still haven't integrated almost anything of it into my workflow. I only even recently learned some stuff about it, but yeah, it's a bit intimidating. But I don't think it will take that long to go, even if you go through every single option, actually. Yeah, we can just do that next time. Tumors is 10 times more intimidating. I feel like geometry dashboard is almost more complex.
The thing with tumor generator is if you're doing basic stuff with it, it's not that bad. It's just I feel like the skill level for doing basic stuff with tumor generator is just like a low bar of entry, but it's also got a lot of potential.
Yeah, it's at least a little bit more straightforward. I mean, in geometry dashboard, you can also only enable a few options, and then it's relatively basic. Like, let's say you could just enable I just want to see the playfield border, so I don't put stuff off screen, and if there's a straight slider, sure, show me the projected line of it so I can put the next object perfectly in line with my straight sliders. And I have no more options, please, that's it. We could kind of use it that way, but I think even then it's like, to find out how that works, you still have to like test around or watch a video. As opposed to in tumor generator, you can kind of just like pull the change the numbers, pull the sliders around, and you're already kind of understanding how it works intuitively. Yeah.
I feel like as well the geometry. Yeah, you couldn't make any cool stuff with geometry dashboard. Geometry dashboard, I feel like is kind of a tool. If you already have, ideas and stuff like that as to how you want stuff to look geometrically, then
Yeah.
it would be useful if you like actually had it in your workflow.
Or like you would have to have some kind of a little bit of mapping knowledge already of like say even if you take the stuff with putting objects in line with straight sliders, kind of have to already know that that's even the most basic thing in that tool, that it's like something other people do. If you just go into Geometry Dashboard as a beginner mapper, I don't think you would be able to understand which stuff is actually useful and which isn't, or which is basic and which is like unnecessarily complicated.
There is some stuff, at least last time we looked through Geometry Dashboard, that seems kind of not very useful,
Yeah.
but like overly complex.
I found out that you can lock stuff now. If you saw that in my screenshot, you could like make straight sliders, create lines, or like make circles with objects, and then like lock the virtual objects, and then like save that as a preset in Geometry Dashboard. So you could have like it as a reference. That makes sense.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I imagine you could maybe even like just put a single circle in the middle of the playfield, enable the option where it's like create a virtual circle around circles, and then save that, lock that, and save it as a preset, and then you just have a single like virtual circle that you can arrange stuff around or something.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good use for it actually.
Yeah, I mean we can just go over that next time. Whatever. Yeah, it's fine.